is a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Accoli.
No, he's a good human being, is what he would say about himself, I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin, would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm gonna have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Well, off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
Well, hello, everyone. Long time no talk. Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. We are live and our doubleheader. You can follow us, of course, on Twitter at podcast_hockey, Facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, the Hockey Podcast, where we currently sit and continue to sit at the 100 and Christopher Gibson, number 3 goalie of the Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning of subscribers. And, of course, you can subscribe to the audio as soon as it is done. As we have moved gradually, easily from celebrating, reflecting on the Stanley Cup champions into the off season, as today we release as part of our off season videos. Probably this is the biggest project that we have ever done as a group. And it is, we'll be taking all 30 teams that have to have an expansion protection list. And we have said who we would protect and who we will release to the Kraken. So we have here Tyler. Hello, Tyler. How are you doing?
I'm good. Nice to be with you guys. And seeing as I wasn't on this morning, just a quick congratulations to the Tampa Bay Lightning on their 3rd Stanley Cup.
You sound emotionally engaged with that.
Yeah,
like you sound so happy. You sound like Joel Gaudette right now.
If it's not my team, it's just not the same thing. But that was a well-earned win.
That's totally fair.
Yeah.
Fair. We've got Chris here as well. Hello, Chris.
Hello.
Thanks for carving up some time as you're prepared to go to a concert after this.
My first one in 17 months. I'm pretty stoked.
Hey, yeah, it's very true. It's been 17 months since people have been to concerts. Holy cow.
I last attended one in February of 2020.
Wow. Jeez.
And I typically go to at least once a month.
Fair. Okay, hey. No, I am not judging you. I am very happy for you. Devin is here. Hello, Devin.
Fuck you, Chris.
As soon as Kevin said he was happy for Chris, Devin's like, I'm not happy for Chris. I am absolutely not happy for Chris.
Devin shows no love for Chris.
Oh, Chris, I love you, man. I'm happy that you get to go and see the Trues and that you're so popular with them that you're going and doing your thing. So, hey, good on you.
He's not jealous.
I think Chris gave you the finger, Devin. But how are you doing? This is like your second go round?
Yeah, I'm good. Better than this morning. This morning was a bit of a slugfest for myself. And yeah, got some alcohol within me right now. So this can be fun, boys.
Oh, boy.
Tyler's so excited.
Yeah. Well, we're
Sean,
4.5 minutes here.
Yes. Sean, hello.
Hello. Yeah, I had to quickly make dinner just before this, so made sure that Heidi was happy. A hungry Heidi is not a happy Heidi, so made sure I got that done, and now I'm ready to go. And just like I think everyone else here, I'm enjoying a nice beverage now and ready to hopefully not rip into too many people about their choices.
The 2 on the bottom of the screen may be under fire.
Don't worry. And I think there's a few of us who will be under fire in some way, shape, or form. But we're going to go through what we're doing here is this is first of 3 parts. So we have each of us have selected, so have some teams, and we have determined who we would protect and who we would leave unprotected. So this is what we're going to discuss today. Then we are going to, from this group, we are going to create our own Kraken team, and then we're going to talk about that as well. So we're not going to do that today. This is just the unprotected part. We're going to go by division. If you have comments, questions, feel free to chime them in there, what you guys think. I think I know there is some I will say, just to tease, and we're not doing any, it's not hot takey, but I do think that there are some very interesting decisions that have had to be made overall. Maybe I'll let Sean, sort of, for those who don't know, the expansion rules are a little confused. Give us the expansion rules for those who don't know.
All right. So, yeah. Each team outside of Vegas, because
He's frozen.
Yep.
For the love of
what
people.
timing, yeah.
It's a beautiful face, too.
I'm gonna screenshot this. This is really good.
Yeah,
Live television.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, he was saying that Vegas is exempt from this expansion process. I'm assuming they negotiated that as part of their entry into the league. So, and it's kind of funny. Just a quick aside on that. What we hope for Sean to return is that, a year ago there was all this concern with the Canucks about Markstrom and Demko, and would you lose a goalie to the expansion draft? Well, like, the best goalie duo is the one in Vegas, I think, if you want to look at a tandem, and neither of them are even at risk of being taken.
That is
funny how that's played out.
Yeah,
oh.
Yeah, and then I guess is he coming back or what?
He'll be back.
Okay, I'll just quickly go through the lists here. NHL teams can protect either 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and a goalie, or 8 skaters, regardless of position in a goalie. All players with no move clause, not no trade clause, no move clause, must be protected unless they agree to waive it. First and second years and unsigned draft picks are exempt and don't count towards projection totals. Every team must expose 1 defenseman who was under contract in 2021-22 and played at least 40 games in 2021, or 70 total games the last 2 seasons, and 2 forwards that meet the same requirement. Every team must expose 1 goaltender who is under contract for 2021-22 or a restricted free agent. An RFA goalie must receive a qualifying offer prior to the expansion draft. So that's basically the rules. And we're going to start with the Pacific Division, and Sean did the Anaheim. We were going to go alphabetically, but we'll start with the Calgary Flames and that is me. So I'm going to be under the heat for the first one here. And again, everyone, if you have questions and comments, feel free to chime in on that. But
if we're going alphabetical, wouldn't it be Arizona?
Arizona's in the Central Division.
Oh,
Yes.
Well, my apologies. I'm going to apologize for my brother, because within this spreadsheet that he's made, Arizona is in the Pacific.
Yes, Arizona has moved to the Central Division.
Well,
that's why.
The more you know.
The more you know. All right, so we'll start with the Calgary Flames. And so my protected list is, the forwards are Johnny Gaudreau, Sean Monahan, Elias Lindholm, Andrew Mangiapane, Dylan Dubé, Michael Backlund, and Matthew Tkachuk. Defensemen are Chris Tanev, Noah Hannafin, and Rasmus Anderson. And the goaltender is Jacob Markstrom. This of my list of my groups was probably the easiest, and it may be the most, in a lot of ways, might be the most controversial. The name that you may not have heard is Mark Giordano, and no, I'm not protecting Giordano. I think that, to me, it comes down to the forward depth. You want to keep a Mangiapane. I know Dylan Dubé didn't have the greatest year, but I think that this is a guy that you at least don't want to be exposed to. If you're going to have him, you don't want to lose him for nothing. It's entirely possible that, yes, the Kraken will take Giordano, but I think that this is, to me, just the young forwards. The forward depth on this group is ultimately makes the decision to me that you And Anderson's and Hannafen's upside, as well as a great year that Tanev had, makes this to be Giordano the one that you have to, the big decision of who you expose.
Yeah, outside of a potential deal that Brad Treliving would be talking with Ron Francis about, I have no gripes with your protected list, and I think that it will be either Giordano or there has been talks that Derek Ryan could be on the chopping block, or within getting taken within that group, along with a potential Oliver Shillington. So overall, Kev, I have zero gripes, and I agree with you.
I do too. I think we're going to see this with a few teams here, where you have to make that tough choice on a veteran player. But Giordano is 37 years old, is not as effective as he once was. Still, I think a great player and an important part of the Flames franchise. But here we are at the crossroads now, where you have to make some calls on who you protect. And the three that you picked there, Kevin, are the three I would have picked as well.
I can't really disagree. I echo both Devin and Tyler.
Yeah,
there. All right. As I'm sure Sean may have had a gripe, but
he's having internet problems. So,
well, we can ask him when he comes back.
Yeah, we'll maybe chime in on that. But the next one is the Edmonton Oilers, and that is Tyler. So I'll give him the floor.
Yeah, I mean, the first three here are really easy ones. I had to really spend time thinking about whether I should put Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on my protected list, but no, of course they're there. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins as well, obviously just re-signed the $8 million or the 8-year deal. Then it got a little more difficult for me, and I have Zach Kassian, Jujhar Khaira, and Jesse Puljujarvi. That one a little more obvious to have on the list. And Kyler Yamamoto. And then for defense, that was, Darnell Nurse is an obvious one. I was kicking it around for a while. The spreadsheet has Oscar Klefbom as a yes here, and I wanted to change my mind on that. I think under normal circumstances, you definitely have Oscar Klefbom on the protected list. He said, when he has played and has been healthy, has been a huge part of Edmonton's defense. But the question going forward is he reliable for any team? So I would actually substitute Ethan Bear instead of Oscar Klefbom and take a chance on that. And then I'm hoping. I think for a lot of Oilers fans, I think they're hoping for Tyson Barrie to be re-signed and be on this protected list as well. And then Mikko Koskinen. I don't know what's going to happen with Mike Smith. I think it's. There's no certainty there that they're going to be able to re-sign Mike Smith or want to re-sign Mike Smith. That's a big question mark. So if he's not re-signed, then Mikko Koskinen has to go on the protected list. So that's my Oilers selection.
And I just want to preface to anybody who's watching who wants to go through this with us, go to capfriendly.com, pick the interactive button, and then go to Seattle Expansion Draft Simulator, so you can kind of follow along what we're doing here. I think that'll be a good little portion for you if you want to follow along. But as far as Tyler's picks go, I don't have too many disagreements within that. I don't know if I would protect Mikko Koskinen. He's a 4.5 cap hit until he has one more year left. Yeah, you could probably swallow that for the next year. He could be a part of the buyout within the next 24 hours. So that could be a possibility, and depends on where you sit on Dylan Wells, Stuart Skinner, within your goalie depth chart, if you will. So that would be kind of my only thing that I could really potentially give Tyler shit about for the Edmonton Oilers. But otherwise, it makes a lot of sense for the majority of those players sticking around. And but as far as Mike Smith goes, I've heard a lot of things, and especially from Kevin Woodley, who's a friend of the podcast. He did say that Edmonton is very high on Mike Smith, and that they like the way that he does play in front of that team. So I'm over 50% sure that they'll probably re-sign him. But yeah, as far as the protection list goes, hey, I have no gripes.
Yeah, I mean, if Mike Smith does get re-signed between now and the actual expansion draft, then obviously he's going to be the one protected and not Koskinen. But if they don't re-sign Smith and you don't protect Koskinen, you lose him. That's now where are the Oilers with goaltending, and that's been such a heel for that team over the last number of years. So that's kind of what pushed me in that direction. I just will add one more thing too. It was hard for me to leave Adam Larson and I'm now blanking here. Adam Larson was one that I left. It was Alex. Where is he here? Alex Chase. Those two leaving them exposed was a tough call there. I think that they've been very helpful pieces for the Oilers, but there's only so many that you can put on this list, and I was leaning towards younger guys.
Fair enough. Yep. Can't argue with that. And yeah, in your defense, as far as the goalie situation, I was going to bring up the fact that Oilers were struggling for having a third goalie pretty much most of the regular season. So, yeah.
Do we have a
back?
Hi,
Sean.
Oh, they've already missed Calgary and Edmonton.
Perfect fucking timing.
Yeah.
So I'll just give my quick Edmonton comment, and then we'll bring Sean in. I wouldn't have protected Cassian. I would have protected Josh Archibald. That's one differ, and I would have protected Alex Stalock over Mikko Koskinen. I don't think that Koskinen would have been. I don't think that, like, with the goaltenders out there, I don't think Koskinen is going to be a guy that the Kraken are going to take anyway. But I think of just seeing what's out there, that would have been my only two. But other than that, I don't have a huge issue. It's really the Oilers in terms of, other than the obvious ones, that forward group is they're kind of trapped. But I would have protected Josh Archibald.
I kicked that one around for a bit too.
Yeah. Makes sense.
All right,
Sean.
So Calgary and Edmonton.
Yeah.
Start up with Edmonton.
Yeah, let's get
Edmonton. That's as Kevin said, like the big guys are the easy ones. The questions I have are Cassian and Jujar Kara. When you've got players like Dominic Cahoon, as well as Josh Archibald, as well as someone an up and comer like a Tyler Benson as well. I think those are three players that I think are ones that I think they're going to be looking at to try and protect. With Koskinen, they want out of that contract as soon as possible as well. So I think he will get exposed by Edmonton in hopes that Seattle takes him, but I don't think they will.
Before you came on, we kind of qualified that, if they re-sign Mike Smith or a goalie of that caliber, then for sure Koskinen's exposed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then
I just want to, are you going to go for the defense or are you going to Calgary?
The defense. You've got the no-brainer in Nurse, and then I think it's a no-brainer in Ethan Bear. Then after that, it's a bit wide open because you've got Clefbaum, but he's injured. I think he's an easy exposed, as well as, and then you've got a bunch of UFAs available. Adam Larson, I think he's going to end up testing. You've got
Kitty.
Tyson Barrie, again, someone who I don't know where he ends up. And then you've got some younger guys with like a Caleb Jones, a William Lagesson. But I think if they do go with, say, with what Tyler did with Bear, Nurse, and Barrie, I don't think that's a bad way to go. There's no one that I would be. I would look at that and say it's a big loss for the Oilers. They've got a lot of good defensemen that are exempt from this, with Philip Broberg and Evan Bouchard. Well, not a lot, but two big ones in Philip Broberg and Evan Bouchard that I think are going to be stepping into that top six, if not next year, but really quickly. So, the only one, if I was going to say the only question mark I would have with the three that Tyler protected would be Tyson Barrie, but if he wants to stay, then you protect him.
My other question, though, Tyler, is if Duncan Keith ends up an Oiler, who do you leave out?
Well, if he comes, I don't think Barry's back. So that would be the switch there. I think they believe in Ethan Bear, and they've got to keep him on their protected list.
The other thing is, I believe all the rumors are out there that the Edmonton wants to make that trade after the expansion draft for that specific reason.
Yeah, I was playing a scenario.
Good question. Yeah, no, it's a good question.
Yeah.
Sean, I don't know. You know my Calgary list, so because you saw it.
Yeah. It's hard to argue with anything that you protected there, Kevin. I think the big one is Giordano, because I don't know. He's the captain, but he's also 37. You've got 24-year-old Noah Hanifin, 24-year-old Rasmus Anderson that I think you absolutely have to protect, which leaves which leaves a question: are you protecting Chris Tanev or Mark Giordano? And either way, I think Calgary's probably making a deal with Seattle to try and keep all four of those defensemen going into next season. Because if they had tried to do an 8 skater situation where they could protect 4 defensemen, they're going to have to make a deal and deal with that Monahan Goodrow question mark and get players back that are exempt to make that work. And even because if you do that, you're exposing Backlund. I don't think Seattle would take him. Because Backlund's 32, has 3 more years left on his deal at 5.35. I don't think that's something that they would want. Lucic has set these waves, so we know that that's a non-starter. But when you get into the four forwards that they would have to protect, you got Tkachuk, Gaudreau, Monahan, Lindholm, and then now you throw in Mangiapane. You have to make a decision. So if they are going to try and find a way to do 8 skaters, they have to make a move on one of those forwards first.
Yeah. All right.
Before we go any further, I just want to ask a quick question just as far as clarifying something. Because back when Vegas did their expansion draft, there was a lot of these side deals, and maybe Sean was going to cover this when he was initially going to cover the bases as far as the rules. But I just want to know what is being prevented from happening after what happened with Vegas.
There is the rules are the same as what happened with
okay,
Vegas.
For some reason I thought the rules had been modified. Okay, never mind then.
Yeah.
No,
the strategies will certainly be different. I think
the strategy is totally going to be different. Yeah.
I'll be very surprised if Seattle is gifted a first line like Vegas was.
Fair.
Yeah. All right, Sean, we'll go back to you here because we were planning to do you have Anaheim, so I will toss that to you.
All right. I actually talked with one of our viewers and listeners, Dylan, to get some thoughts on that. He is a big Anaheim fan.
Hold on, wait. You listen to somebody?
Can you believe that?
I can't. I'm sorry. Okay, please go.
This is what we call growth.
That's fantastic.
So you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Okay,
that's right.
Every once in a while. Hey, I'm going back to school in the fall. I gotta be able to learn. I went with the 7-3 setup with Anaheim. I debated going 8 skaters, but I think there's enough good young talent on Anaheim up front that need to be protected that you have to go 7-3. I protected Adam Henrique, Jakob Silfverberg, Ricard Raquel, and now we get into the young players with Troy Terry, Isaac Lundstrom, Max Jones, and Sam Steele. You have to protect Sam Steele because that's one of the best names in the NHL. Plus, he's got some good upside. I think they've got some good upside with those 4 young forwards. And then they're gonna protect. I feel like they're gonna protect Cam Fowler, Hampus Lindholm are the for sure protection spots. The last one I debated on because you've got Hayden Fleury at 24, who I think is going to be very tough for Seattle to pass up. But I ended up sticking with Josh Manson because I I do think that he's even at 29. I still think he's got 3-4 years left that are going to be very good. He's a strong defensive defenseman who plays physical, and they need that. They've got Cam Fowler, they've got Jamie Drysdale coming up. You're going to need to have some big physical defensemen to be able to round out that defense. And then you've got the no-brainer protection of John Gibson.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just looking at the list and seeing exposed next to Ryan Getzlaf's name. I believe a free agent coming up this offseason. But boy, that's hard to imagine him not being back in an Anaheim Ducks uniform.
Did I hear Troy Terry? Are you protecting Troy Terry?
Yes.
I am.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm just making sure. Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, I think that's a very sensible list. But I don't. Yeah. I mean, it's. I guess it's kind of like Giordano. You kind of have to make the call now on a guy that's. I hate saying they're in decline, but past the prime years.
He's
with Getzlaf, he's UFA. He doesn't have 1 year left like Giordano does. And he's got so much power within that within who he is as a hockey player that he can say no to anybody else realistically, and I think that's probably a conversation that the Anaheim brass had with him and or will have with him if not they haven't had already to expose him, and I think it'd be ridiculously stupid of the Seattle Kraken to take him, because I don't think he's coming up to the Pacific Northwest over here. So, but everybody else does make sense. I mean, you can make an argument for Denton Heinen potentially, and like you said, Sean, Hayden Fleury I think is a good potential, along with Jacob Larson. I think that he's a good young defenseman, and even potentially a Brennan Gooley. He's a good young player as well that you could easily the Seattle Kraken could potentially want to take within that lineup. But otherwise, I think you picked a pretty damn good protection list there, Sean.
Yeah, I guess my only. Oh, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Oh, I wasn't gonna chime in much. I was gonna say I agree and with Sean's protection list.
Yeah, the only thing I guess I would quibble is Hayden Fleury, but that's other than that, I don't disagree. I do agree. I think you have to expose Getzlaf. Kraken are not going to take him. I would suspect that I do think the Kraken will have a long look at Hayden Fleury, and probably I think they'll have a long look at that Anaheim defense. But other than that, I don't have a huge issue with anything on that one.
So then, where are you guys sitting on Denton Heinen? Because he was a Boston prospect for a long time, and obviously they moved on from him.
He's an RFA this year. I just looked at you've got your three big, like the only if he gets protected, I think you might be looking at potentially Adam Henrique being exposed just because of his age. He's 31.
Yeah.
He's got 3 years left at 5.825. I think that might be a little too rich for Seattle's but I just look at I feel like Silverberg and Raquel are the two like bona fide you're going to have to protect in terms of the vets, and then you just look at those four young guys that. You got Troy Terry at 23. You've got Isaac Lundstrom at 21, and Max Jones and Sam Steele both at 23 as well. I think you have to find a way to protect those guys, because they do have Trevor Zegras coming up. Maxime Comtois has stepped in, and both of them are exempt from this draft. So I think you just have to start looking at the next wave. They've got. Jacob Perreault, as well as Braden Tracy, who I don't sleep on Braden Tracy. He was an absolute stud in the WHL, and I think he's going to be someone that is going to make that next step pretty quickly. I was really hoping that he would have been around for this in the second round when the Canucks were picking early in that draft. He went late first round to the Anaheim Ducks, and. But I think we are going to see them with a big youth movement, even more so than they have now going the next couple of years with Anaheim. So maybe they do surprise us all, and maybe there is even like they do expose a Josh Manson and protect a Hayden Fleury or a Jacob Larson or a Brendan Gooley in place of him. But I just look at that and I think you need to have a Josh Manson on that roster to protect those young players. He is someone who understands his role and understands that, and not only for protection, just being a good, solid defenseman. So I think that's just the way I look at it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they end up exposing him.
And just a quick note on Adam Henrique. You do have all those potential good prospects within Anaheim, but it would be a good pickup if you're looking for a good veteran presence. He was captain of Team Canada this year for the World Championships, and I feel like he would be a good mentor for the young players who probably will be, or a good portion of the potential new Seattle Kraken, and could be a good first captain of that team.
Fair. All right, let's move on here to the San Jose Sharks. Or no, sorry, the Los Angeles Kings. That's Devin. Go ahead.
Oh, that is me. Look at me go. Man, let me just pull it up here. Sorry, fellas. All right, so I obviously went down the list. You have your no doubters of the forward list. You have Kopitar. I did not protect Dustin Brown. And the newly acquired Victor Arvidsson, I protected him. Iafallo, I protected him. Adrian Kempe and Brandon Lemieux, I protected them as well, along with Blake Lizotte and a Carl Gunstrom. Gunstrom, if you've not heard of him, he's 23 years old. He's going to be an RFA next year. I think they're pretty high on him. The notables that I left off of the forwards, obviously Dustin Brown, Andreas Athanasiou, Austin Wagner, he's 24, and I had a hard time debating whether or not he would be protected over maybe a Carl Gunstrom, and all the other guys in the on that defense or the offensive side of the puck. I think that those are the best ones as of right now. For defense, you have to protect the Drew Doughty. He has a new movement clause. I protected Oli Mata and Sean Walker. The notables out of there that I didn't protect is mostly just Curtis McDermott. He's 27. He can play the left and right side. He's going to be UFA at the end of next year, but I still think he is a formidable defenseman overall. So I don't see that there's any quibble within that really. And then we Kevin and I talked about this earlier today, and I know that he's going to be coming at me a little bit for not protecting. No, you're not. Oh man, I was expecting a little bit of debate.
I think we talked him into it.
I just forgot about Cal Peterson, to be honest with you.
That's who I'm protecting. He's 26 years old, over Jonathan Quick, who's 35. He's been out of his prime for the past 4 to 5 years, and he has 3 years left, or 2 years left at $5.8 million a year. Peterson, he shared the net, if not had more starts than Jonathan Quick this year. So to me, it was a no-brainer to keep the younger goaltenders. So anybody else have any quibbles with that?
No, I think that's a really really solid list. It would be a shock to me if they were to take Jonathan Quick for the reasons you outlined.
Yep. Yeah, I don't really. I mean, it seems like with that defense, other than Drew Doughty, it's basically like you're rolling the dice in a lot of ways and what you're protecting. I do like the Carl Grundstrom protection. I think Dustin Brown, that's obvious. That's another one of those Mark Giordano decisions I think that you have to make. And that might be, and Andreas Athanasiou, I think that's a guy I think he's journeyman type of player. So there's nothing really, to me, I have no issues.
The only one I have is and it's not, I just wonder if they try and galaxy blurring this and maybe protect Cale Clegg on the blue line. He's 22. He was 23 now. He's was a second-round pick of theirs. He put up 12 points in 23 games with the Ontario Reign. He was an assistant captain with them this past year. He played 18 games with LA this past season and put up got 6 assists. I wonder if they go that route and just and go a little bit younger, because their core, they're going on we talked about Anaheim going on a youth movement. LA, the Kings are going to do that as well. They've got so much talent up front with Quentin Byfield, Arthur Kaliev, Alex Turcotte, Tyler Madden, Gabe Velarde, Rasmus Kupari, Akil Thomas. On the back end, I think that's where they need to figure that out, I think. So is Cale Clegg part of that future there? And if they feel like that, I think they might end up protecting him over a Sean Walker or an Ole Mata.
Yeah, to me, it just looks like the Kings' defense is a bit interchangeable, though, at this point.
But it is. It depends on. I think Anaheim and LA are very interesting teams to watch with that. Do they try and protect some of the younger players that are expansion draft eligible, or do they protect the true bona fide NHLers that they have at those positions?
Fair. All right. Next is the San Jose Sharks, and that is me. And with the Sharks, they're kind of handcuffed, to be honest with you. So in terms of, we'll start with defense. Karlsson, no move, you have to protect. Vlasic, no move, you have to protect, and Brent Burns. So that was easy. And then you have Logan Couture, you protect. I think that's a no-brainer. Evander Kane, I don't think you protect, but I do wonder if they're going to be shopping him around. Thomas Hertl, I think, is a no-brainer. Toby Meyer, a no-brainer. Kevin LeBanc, a no-brainer, especially after some of the contract situations. Then it gets a little dicey. So I kept protected Balsers, Gramble as forwards. Specific, I think one name maybe not out there, Ryan Donato. I decided not. And Coronar I protected as goaltender. I think that I would not be surprised if Martin Jones is one of the first buyouts that we hear about within the next couple of days from San Jose. I don't suspect that's that there. But San Jose is actually very similar to the Oilers in the sense that they have some really obvious talent, but right now they're very handcuffed in terms of what they can do for expansion. So there's a lot of up-end talent. That middle to low-end talent isn't quite there. So I'm sure someone will quibble, but I think there's some.
I have a quibble. How dare you not protect Patty Marleau?
Yeah. I don't see much. You said Ryan Donato. Yeah, I could see that. He's an RFA this year. He's 25 years old, 1.9 last year. So potentially him. Matt Nieto, that's another person that I could potentially see being protected within this group. I don't see them as quick of a turnaround as the LA Kings. So he might be a potential over maybe somebody else, maybe like a Balsers or Gambrell. Otherwise, yeah, I'm with you. I don't see anybody else really that is sticking out in my mind that could be potentially unprotected or protected. Out of that group. As far as Martin Jones getting bought out, he has 3 years left at 5.75. That's a decent amount. I don't know if that's what will happen this year, maybe next year. But overall, for the Seattle expansion, yeah, I like your list.
I would echo the thought on Nieto as well.
Yeah, I think they end up protecting Donato, and then with the Martin Jones buyout, as per Cap Friendly, it looks like it's a decent buyout. They would save just over 3.8 this season, just over 3.3 in 22-23, and just over 2.8 in 23-24, and then they've got just over 1.2 1.6 on the books for 3 years after that if they buy him out this offseason. I think I would wait a year to do it. I know you lose the best year to buy him out this year, but with where San Jose is, I think you have to you wait it out a year, see if he can find his game, and then you've got one less year of 1.6, 1 2/3 million on the cap for one less year. But I wouldn't be Kevin, I do think they will be looking at that as well. I think that is something that they will definitely be looking at.
Yeah, and I feel bad about Patty Barlow, Chris. I do. But I think he's retire. I think I wouldn't be surprised if this is the year he retires a Shark anyway. So, all right, let's move to the Vancouver Canucks. This I think this is going to be interesting. Chris has created an interesting list. So go ahead. I will leave this for Chris. Go ahead.
All right, just give me 1 second to pull up my list here. All right. So for me, there was several that are obvious. So we're going to start off with Petey, Bo, Brock, JT Miller. And as far as the forwards, this is where it gets a little bit interesting in the sense that I decided to go with Peterson because I think he still is good enough that he's worth protecting. Tyler Mott is just that scrappy underdog guy that doesn't get nearly paid for how much he's worth, and I think he's worth protecting. And the one that'll probably stir up the most controversy with everyone here is my protection of Matthew Highmore. I know that some of you guys will probably come after me saying that I probably should have protected Lind or Gadjevich or one of the other guys that are currently playing for the Comets or the to-be-named Abbotsford team. And as far as defense, I decided to go with Myers, which might be controversial on Canucks Twitter. I'm not sure if it'll be controversial here. Nate Schmidt and then Oli Ulevi. I think those last two are fairly obvious as far as why they should be protected, and you have to go with Demko as far as protection. DiPietro is good, but Demko is the future. We got to keep him.
My reaction to that, Chris, is that's probably the popular list with a lot of Canuck fans. I mean, the ones that were left exposed are the ones that have been getting speed bagged by people online as far as being useless. So I don't think you're going to run into any controversies there. And as far as Highmore, I mean, they just traded a player that they had high hopes for with Adam Gaudette to bring in Highmore. So I think that they would be committed to him, and they'll take their chances with those other RFAs that you mentioned as well.
Yeah, that was one of the two reasons why I decided to go with Highmore. That and just with how confident Green was with playing him in his limited time with the Canucks.
Yeah.
So you're saying they're more high on Highmore. Okay, got it.
Oh my gosh, that's worse than both Sean and I's jokes.
I'm sorry, that jokes I approve.
I agree with the majority of that, Chris. The only person that I would remove Highmore for would be Zach McEwen, just because of his position, his age. Both him and Highmore are up on RFAs at the end of next year. It's just more position for me, just because of the depth that Vancouver did have down the middle. I think that that's probably the reason why he wasn't pushed up within the lineup a little bit. And Tyler Myers is my other one that's like teetering on the fence. Overall, Schmidt and Ulevi, I think that those are no-brainers, but I could potentially see them exposing Myers potentially with that cap hit, with that amount of term left for a potential Chatfield. Otherwise, yeah, I'm on board with you.
Yeah. I think the last spot is up for grabs. I think it is something that the Canucks need to find a way to make a move to get someone who's more worth protecting than a McEwen, a Lind, a Highmore, or a Gadjevich, just because you look at everyone out, like you just look at that. And same thing with that last defensive spot too. They've got two spots that I think are available to find spots for. But right now, I think the only one I quibble with is Highmore, but that's because I think in my opinion, I think you're going a bit younger with Petey and Hughes, and you've got Höglander coming up, you've got Puck Colson coming in, and I think you want to try and keep the young players together, and I think that's why I would go with Lynn. But it's not that big a deal for me, because I don't think Seattle will end up taking one of those younger players. I think they'll end up going for more NHL ready players.
I would argue Highmore is still only 25, but I hear you.
I agree with Chris's list. I think, just in terms of Zach McEwen, he's had the opportunity. I know Corey Hergott, friend of the podcast, loves Zach McEwen. I love Zach McEwen too, but I don't think he's taken the opportunities that has been given to him. I think Matthew Highmore is going to surprise some people next year. I think he's going to be one of those pleasant Canuck surprises. I think the fact that Green trusts him does say a lot to me. I think the fact that they put him in the lineup, don't forget his playoff bubble experience in Chicago. I do think that that's a pretty shrewd protect. And you're only going to lose one of Lynn, Gadjevich, and McEwen, if at all. So I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, this might be my hot take, but I kind of see McEwen as like the new Virtanen, only in the sense that we have higher hopes for him within the fan base, but he isn't living up to that potential.
Zach seems to just lack trouble getting traction with the coach for whatever reason.
Yeah. So maybe it's the coach that needs to go.
All right, let's move on to the Central Division, when we are going to start with the Arizona Coyotes and Devin.
Yes. So let me click on Arizona right here. So, it was this is one of the ones that kind of makes sense to me, and I don't know if there'll be much against what I'm saying. So I'm going protecting Clayton Keller, Philly Fries, Kessel, Nick Schmaltz, Christian Dvorak, Lawson Krause, Christian Fischer, Connor Garland. Even though he's potentially on the trade block, you still got to protect your asset, not losing for nothing on the forward end. And then on the defensive side, OEL, Oliver Ekman Larson, he has a no movement clause, so you have to protect him unless he wants to waive it. Nicholas Hjalmarsson, and Jacob Chikrin. And then on the back end, to round it all out with goaltenders, Darcy Kemper. To me, all of these are pretty much just no-brainers. You might be able to quibble a bit of maybe a Christian Fischer. He's 24. He's a right winger, and they still have team control with him being an RFA as of next year. But other than that, I don't know, guys. If you're gonna quibble on me on this, it's gonna be by little hairs here and there. So I'm kind of curious what you guys thought. What your guys' thoughts are.
My only one is Chalmerson, just because he's a UFA. I think they might end up protecting one of their younger defensemen that haven't quite made it, just to protect an asset. But it's as you said, it's just we're quibbling over split hairs here with what you've done with Arizona.
Yeah, here.
Yeah, same thought on Hjalmarsson as well. That one takes a little more deliberation, I think.
Yeah, I don't really. Did you say Tyler Pitlick?
I didn't say Pitlick. No.
That might be a little quibble, but other than that, the Coyotes look like they have a fairly obvious list of protect. But and maybe Christian Fischer might be. Yeah, you protected him. So
yeah. And you know what? As far as Jonathan goes, he's a good leader within that group. You do have. Outside of that, you have OEL, who's the captain. But, I mean, I don't see any other really good, solid leaders within that lineup, and within a young group. And if you're kind of looking to rebuild, I think that protecting Hjalmarsson is the better way to go. As far as you do have assets that you could potentially protect, but overall, there's really not much there in the desert, and I do feel bad for him. But overall, I'm happy with my picks.
Perfect. Let's go on to the Chicago Blackhawks and Chris.
All right. So 2 obvious ones with Taves and Kane. You have to protect them because of the no movements. After that, I feel like for the most part, the next couple are going to be obvious in DeBrincat, Strome, and Hagel. But as far as my, not going to call them wild cards, but ones I think might be up for debate would be Henrik Borgstrom and Adam Gaudette. I think that there's enough upside with Gaudette that you should protect him, but I feel like I'll probably take some heat for that one. And then for defense, I went with Duncan Keith, Calvin DeHaan, and Connor Murphy. Keith, I think, is still valuable enough that you should protect him. Calvin DeHaan, just due to the defensive depth there, I think is the obvious choice that you have to go with. And Connor Murphy has shown enough promise that I am happy enough to protect him. And as far as the goaltending situation, Lankinen has been the only real bright spot as far as goaltending for them. So that's who I went for the goalie protection.
My biggest thing, man, is that you don't have Zadorov over DeHaan. I think that's a big miss on my part. Zadorov, he's a big body. He's younger. He's 26 years old, and I feel like he brings a lot to that defensive lineup. He's not quick, but man, he can hit. He can fight. And if push comes to shove, he's a good, solid, defensive defenseman. His offensive side isn't there, but I don't know about DeHaan. DeHaan's 30 years old. He's a UFA after next year, and so if I'm looking at it from a GM's perspective, you want to have as much team control as possible within that lineup. And Zadorov is an RFA this year, so Lankinen, yep. No brainer there, and everybody else is pretty much on there. But it's kind of weird. You protected an ex Vancouver Canuck. I don't get that, but that's neither here nor there.
There's more of those coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to make sure that's clarified that Duncan Keith does have a no movement clause. I know they're looking to find a spot for him in the Pacific Northwest, so it's likely that he might waive, but I think there might be a deal involved there with Keith with Seattle if that is indeed where he ends up.
That was kind of waffling on that specifically, and that's why I didn't put a star on the form that I submitted. But yeah, we'll move on.
Yeah, I think in regards to Gaudette, to me there isn't really an obvious other forward that you'd say, well, no, you got to have him instead of Gaudette. I don't have much of a problem with that.
Well, especially what they give up for him, too.
Yeah.
So my only question, Chris, is Gaudette predicted if he's with the Canucks?
With the Canucks, it would have been debatable, but I probably still would have went to protect him, yeah.
I don't have a huge issue with this list. You don't really need to protect Zadorov is an RFA. You don't necessarily need to protect him. To me, this list, I don't have a huge issue with it myself. But
in terms of Zadorov, I actually did have him on one iteration of my list, but ultimately, from the research that I did do, it felt like a lot of other people were valuing DeHaan over him, so I kind of went with the crowd there in that regard.
Fair. Colorado, Tyler, are you protecting Nathan McKinnon?
I most certainly am. Yeah.
Who's that?
Yeah, so we got Rantanen, McKinnon, Landis, Skog, who is a UFA this season, but you got to assume he's going to be signing with Colorado again. Andre Burakovsky, Nazem Kadri, JT Compher. That one there, I had to debate a little harder. Was kind of torn between him and Donskoy, but I'm going to go with Compher, just a little cheaper, a little younger. Tyson Jost is an RFA. I see he has a big piece of their core there as well. And then on defense, Eric Johnson with the no movement clause, so he has to go on. Samuel Gerard, I think they're really, see him as a key part of their defense. They don't want to give up Cale Makar, an obvious one, and same with Philip Grubauer in goal.
I'm gonna. No, go for it. Go for it.
I was going to say this might be a little bit of a stupid question, but just because Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar were the same year, as far as their rookie year, why is Makar eligible but Hughes was exempt?
Games played. It was games played. He also because he started the year before in the playoffs.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. My biggest quibble on that is Gerard over at Ryan Graves and maybe Devon Taves. It just depends on what your window of winning is. And I feel like it is now with the Ryan Graves. He's 26. He's still young. He's just in his prime. He has still probably a good 4 to 5 years left within this window, and nothing against Samuel Gerard. He's a smaller dude and he can move the puck really, really well. He can skate just as good, but I think Ryan Graves gives him a little bit more punch on the back end. He's a bigger guy, long, luscious hair, just like you, Tyler. So I'm surprised he didn't take him.
Well, Samuel Gerard at 22 years old and signed through 2027 to me is a signal the Avalanche are quite committed to him. So it would surprise me if he was left unprotected.
The one Byron. The one caveat I'll put on that, it does sound like Eric Johnson is going to waive his no movement clause to be exposed for this expansion draft. Okay. So that will allow them to protect. My guess is Devon Taves.
Yeah.
But Devin is right with Ryan Graves being someone who adds that physicality, that toughness to that blue line that I think was exposed a little bit by Vegas in the second round of the playoffs. They were able to sort of dump the puck in and get that forecheck going, and I don't think that the Cale Makars and the Samuel Girards were able to sort of handle that as well as they should have. Those players should learn. They're young enough. Makar's not exactly a small guy either, so I think those two will learn from this. But I do think that when all things are said and done, Eric Johnson will waive that no movement clause, and we will see Devon Taves get added to that to Gerard and Makar with that. And then my only quibble up front would be Brandon Saad. I don't know where the contract negotiations are. He is a UFA, so I understand why Tyler went that way. But I do think that he is someone that Colorado wants to keep long term.
And as far as Devon Taves goes, they did give up 2 second rounders, one this year and one next year. So yeah, I could definitely see him going that route with if Johnson does decide to waive his no trade, that they would go that route just because of the assets they gave up to get him.
Yeah, I like the forwards. I mean, I know that they would love to have Brandon Saad, but ultimately Graybar Landeskog is the captain of the team. So I think if you're going to make a decision on what you're protecting between those two, you're going to go with Landeskog. I totally understand why you go with Gerard with 2027. I do suspect Devon Taves would be the next after if Eric Johnson does waive. But I do agree with you guys on Ryan Graves as well.
We do have a comment from Jeremy Harris saying that he would protect four defensemen if Johnson doesn't waive. And I'm looking at that. I think there would be room for that. As much as Tyson Jost is good and JT Compher and even I would throw in Andre Burakovsky. Yeah. I think that if you're protecting Rantanen, McKinnon, the other thing with Landeskog being a UFA, he doesn't have to sign with Seattle. So if you go Rantanen, McKinnon, Burakovsky, and Kadri as your 4, and then you work that 4 go 4 defensemen and the 8 skating rule, I think it does work. But you have to make.
It's a good point.
Yeah, you have to make sure that you know that your the Landeskog, the Sods are going to be re-signed. Are going to be signing in Seattle.
But with Colorado, though, I wouldn't be surprised if they have a side deal to keep Ryan Graves. That would not surprise me either, though, because like those forwards too. Like that forward group in Colorado is a pretty strong forward group. That you like JT you're leaving out a Jonas Donskoy, which would be a guy that I think Seattle's going to have a long look at as well. So there are some.
You also have Alex Newhook coming in, who's exempt from this. You've got up front, so as well as Shane Bowers and Martin Kaut, a couple other high picks for them in the past few drafts. So I think they do have some players coming up through the ranks.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kev. We talked a little bit about Tyson Jost and JT Compher, but Tyson Jost being 23 years old and where he's been able to jump up and down that lineup, that's a hard pill to swallow if you're going to expose him.
Yeah, that Colorado has some tough decisions to make, and they're in a very interesting window. But we're going to move on to the Dallas Stars, which is me. And I think this is a pretty obvious list, but I'm sure someone will quibble. Forwards, I protected Tyler's again, Jamie Benn, Alex Radulov, Vaxa, Rupe Hintz, Dennis Gurianov, and Joe Pavelski. I just think that those are the 7 that you go with. Defenseman Esa Lindell, I don't think you talk about Nikita Kucherov being one of those heels. Esa Lindell is a little bit of a pest as well. Miro Heiskanen and John Klingberg, I think, just are really strong defense. And ultimately, I know that he's been injury prone, but I think that they would rather have Ben Bishop than Anton Hoboden if he's healthy. I think they want to see if the Kraken take a shot at seeing if they take Anton Hoboden. So I think that they're going to leave him exposed. I think that's probably the most debate I would imagine would be Bishop and Hoboden, but I'm sure someone sees something different as well.
Does Bishop have a no movement clause?
He does.
Any indication about waiving there?
I haven't seen that yet, but I haven't actually looked too deep into that.
Yeah.
With Kevin, with the defense, I think is pretty straightforward. Lindell, Klingberg, and Heiskanen are just no brainers. But up front, it's not necessarily a quibble. It's just something I wonder about someone like a Jason Dickinson, who I think is a very big part of that roster, a very big part of that locker room. And I think they're going to find a way to keep him, even if it is at the expense of even exposing a Joe Pavelski, just because he is 1 year left at $7 million. Is Joe Pavelski part of what Seattle's going to be trying to build? I don't think so.
Yeah, I'd be willing to take that risk. That's exactly my thoughts, Sean. Dickinson, I think he's too much of a risk to lose within that lineup. And how dare you, sir, not protect Justin Dowling? My boy. Yes, Justin Dowling.
Well, he's never come on the podcast, so I could not protect him. That's the same rule because of Patrick Marleau. He's never come on the podcast as a guest.
Kevin's calling out Justin Dowling. I'm going to try and get him on here. I really am. I've been trying for the past little bit. But anyways, I think overall that's a good protection list. Ben Bishop, I don't think he will be waiving his no-trade clause. He strikes me as an egotistical guy who really just loves himself, and so exposing himself to a potential new situation within Seattle Kraken, I don't see him doing that. But Jason Dickinson is my only gripe within that.
Okay, anybody else? No. Okay, we'll move on. Minnesota Wild, and that is Sean. This will be interesting because there is.
Actually, I know this is going to be tough for you to edit and all this, Kevin, but we're getting close to where Chris needs to leave, so I think we should let Chris go over the rest of his teams, and then we'll go there. Just okay. Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. So
unfortunately, we're way too talky for my time constraints, but I don't hold that against anyone because under any other circumstance, I would enjoy the hell out of it. I guess in that case, I'll just go alphabetically for the teams that I do have. So I'll go first with Boston Bruins. For them, the obvious ones of Bergeron, Marchand, and Coyle because they all have NMCs. The other obvious forward choice is obviously David Pastrnak. Jake DeBrusk, I feel, is a little bit controversial, but I feel like you don't want to lose him for nothing. There's enough upside there that you do want to protect him. Craig Smith. And then the last one, which also may be a little controversial, but I feel like he's deserved the protection, is Trent Frederic. I feel like he's shown enough promise that you should give him that protection. And yeah, I will keep on moving on to defense. The obvious choice of McAvoy and Grzelcyk. Grzelcyk may not be as good as you always want him to be, but he's still good enough. I think that he's worth protecting. And Carlo is kind of the wild card, if you will, for the defense. And instead of protecting Rask, I'm actually going to go with Vladar.
The only thing with Grzelcyk is that he was injury prone and has been injury prone within that lineup. He was supposed to take over Torrey Krug within that first power play unit. 5-on-5, he's decent to okay. But if you really look down that lineup on who else you could potentially protect, well, maybe a Connor Clifton, maybe a Jeremy Lauzon. Jacob Zaboral was a part of that 1, 2, 3 in a row first round picks that they had back. Oh God, it was like 2017 or 18, right around there. I think that those are really good. That's a really good list there. The only little pushback that I would have would maybe an Andre Kasha, who they got from Anaheim. He's been injury prone as well, so you don't know exactly where he's sitting at. Nick Ritchie, he really hasn't stepped up at 25 years old to be a potential keeper on a team. But overall, I agree with you. Even leaving Tuukka Rask and more so obvious Halak available over Daniel Vladar.
Vladar.
And also intentionally left off Krejci as well.
Yeah, they're all UFAs. I think DeBrusk and Frederic are the two that I think are going to be the more debatable ones with Andre Kasha and Nick Ritchie.
That's fair. Ritchie was the one that I was debating with as far as Frederic, but I felt like there was more what have you done for me lately with Frederic over Ritchie. So that's my rationale in that regard. Moving on, my next alphabetical team.
I was just going to.
Sorry, quickly. Go ahead.
Sorry, I know you're going quick. I just wanted to chime in. I would have protected Ritchie over DeBrusk. That's my only quibble. Okay, go ahead.
Fair enough. Tyler, did you have any?
Nope.
All right. The next one will be Detroit. Dylan Larkin. Vrana, just because of who you had to give up in Mantha. I feel like Vrana you have to protect. Bertuzzi, Rasmussen, Fabry, and then the two that I had to really do my research on just because I haven't watched very much Detroit is Adam Erne and Giovanni Smith. From the research that I've seen, it seems like a lot of the Red Wings fans are high on these two, so I figured they were worth protecting. You guys can debate that if you want. As far as defense, Hronek, Cholowski, and the one I hinted earlier, Troy Stetcher. And
that's world champion Troy Stetcher, by the way. So you got to have him on now.
Yeah,
I know.
And yeah, I'm not sure if you guys caught the goalie, but Grice,
yeah. This is probably the toughest list to have to pick. So I don't envy Chris for having to go through this exercise. I mean, it's Detroit, right? But they're all reasonable choices. It's a young group that you've got on your protected list, and Detroit's in the phase where they're rebuilding, so it all makes sense to me.
Adam Aaron, he came out hard this past season. This is kind of his breakout season. So good on you for being able to pick him. He made it a lot easier on there, Chris. Overall, yeah, everybody else looks good to me, man.
All right, Sean, do you have any quibbles or Kev?
Yeah, like it's once you get down to those younger players, I think Michael Rasmussen is a high pick. I think they are going to end up protecting, but I think it's going to be after that with the Giovanni Smith and Adam Ernie. I think Ernie's the one that I think might get exposed over someone like you've got Haro Tarosi and Evgeny Svechnikov, Don McTurgeon. There's a decision to be made, I think. But again, I think we don't know enough about the Detroit the Detroit system to be able to really make a good a really good decision there.
Fair enough. And as far as who I scratched in favor of Ernie, however you pronounce his last name, was Nemeskov.
I do have to push back with Ernie. I like Ern, however the hell you say it. He's he pushed hard in that last little bit, and I think he's really shown his potential within this league. So I'm with you, Chris, over Sean.
My only beef, and I'm just trying to go quick for Chris's time here. My only beef is I wouldn't be surprised if Stetcher is left unprotected. I think they may protect DeKaiser over Stetcher.
I was a little waffling on that, but I ultimately did show my bias. But I feel like Stetcher legitimately has enough promise that it's worth having that conversation.
If they're gonna leave Stetcher unprotected, it's going to be for someone younger than a 31-year-old Danny DeKaiser, who's a UFA after this upcoming season.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. Anyway, sorry, I'm trying to go quick for Chris here.
Yeah. So on to my second last team, New Jersey Devils. I went with the obvious Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt, Pavel Zacha, and I'm going to probably struggle with the next two names, Janne Kuokkanen and Yegor Sharangovich.
Yeah, not bad. Well done,
Tyler.
You really worked at this.
Miles Wood, and then Andreas Johnsson as far as my forwards. And then for defense, Damon Severson, Jonas Seigenthaler, and Will Butcher. And then I feel it's obvious as far as goaltending for the Devils right now, you have to go with Blackwood.
Yeah, and I mean, other than Blackwood and Hischier, I don't think there's any, clear, obvious ones here, right? Like, it's such a young squad.
Yeah.
I'd say Will Butcher is the one that I would say that is a clear cut, along with Miles Wood, a clear cut protection agent. Yes, you got to protect them.
The only one I look at and wonder is a Michael McLeod and maybe even a Nick Merkley. But we were getting into those young players where you have to make a decision, and you're going to have to leave one or two unprotected unless you're going to be leaving someone like Andreas Johnsson unprotected into that draft.
Yeah, for what it's worth, Detroit and New Jersey are the two that I had to do the most research on.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
All right, and if we're ready, I will move on to my final team, the Flyers. The two obvious ones with NMCs is Giroux and Hayes. Then I decided to protect Konecny, Couturier, Lawton, Oscar Lindblom, and Nolan Patrick to round up the forwards. And then for defense, Provorov, Myers, and Sandheim. And another obvious goalie pick, you have to go with Carter Hart.
I mean, Jakub Voracek being exposed is, the cap hit being so big, and he's 31 years old. I understand it, but boy, that's.
And as far as defending that pick, I will, and I think I did in the group chat already, but just to say it for everyone else here, it's a calculated gamble. I realize that he's part of their core, that he's a high-paid player, and that you probably should want to protect him. but his skill set in that team currently, there's enough young guys that have the same skill set as him that I feel like you can take that gamble, that if they do decide to take him, that they have enough guys to fill that spot.
Well, also a bunch more cap space once that happens.
And that was the other half of it, is the fact that it's that big of a contract.
So then, Tyler, who would you replace him with?
Very quickly here.
Okay, if you're going to throw that out there, then
that's true. I mean, I guess it'd have to be Konechny. Same position. They're both right.
No, I know
No.
Konechny had a rough season,
Yeah.
but if you're protecting Voracek, it's going to be Lawton. That's going to be the odd man out, in my opinion. But it's very fun to see someone like a Jakub Voracek, let alone a James Van Riemsdyk, available for Seattle to take. That's. You got, who would you take out of those two, honestly, if you're Seattle?
Voracek.
You've got Voracek.
If he's, like I said, when I saw him exposed, like he's taken for sure.
He's 8.25 signed
know
till
if I'm taking
2024, or James Van Riemsdyk at 7, so 1.25 less for 1 year less.
I'm actually taking someone else.
Let me, before you go, Kev. So Voracek is 1 year younger than JVR. I feel like he has more upside. He's a right winger, and the playmaking ability that he could show and give towards a young player, player X that is that's been taken by Seattle, who is a sniper, could learn a lot from him and be a beneficial part within that growing that identity that Seattle wants to bring. Over at JVR. JVR, all he does is stand in front of the net, and he's good on the power play because he can tip the puck, and I believe that's it. But I'm curious on what or who Kev would take over top of those two guys.
I would take Shea Gotzer, sir.
I was about to say Ghost Bear.
I just think that's he hasn't worked in Philly. I totally understand that, but there was potential there, and I think with you look at the coach and the coach has worked with him before. I think that there's a relationship there. I think that he can get the most out of that. But the Flyers overall, they're like the Flames. They need a major shakeup in that organization. That is an organization with a bunch of rust on there too. But there is some interesting players on there that I would take.
I honestly do think that. Even if you have Voracek and Van Riemsdyk, it's going to be tough to pass up whoever of the defensemen that Philadelphia exposes, whether it's Gostisbehere or Philip Myers, because I think those are the two. You're protecting Provorov, you're protecting Sanheim. I think that's no brainers, and then you have to make a decision on the next one, and whoever is exposed there, I think it's going to be very, very tough for Ron Francis and Dave Hackstall to pass up either a Gostisbehere over a Philip Myers.
Oh, Philip Myers, he is a player. He came out. He's come onto the scene within the past year, and he's shown his worth. Sorry, Flames fans, including myself and Kevin, that he walked on to the Flames camp, and the Flames didn't want him. He's a big, huge defenseman, but he can play, and he's shown that he can play. The Flames walked on him, and he's shown that he can play within the NHL. He's only 24 years old. He's a right shot defenseman, which are hard to find. So you know what? If I'm the brass in Philadelphia, I'm protecting Myers over Gostisbehere, and Gostisbehere he's shown that he has struggled even outside of his inaugural season within the NHL. So Kevin, that's a good point on your part there.
All right,
so
Chris.
I'll just jump in and say that if there was a hot take that I had for a team, it probably was Philly as far as like going with your non-conventional picks. So I definitely took a more of a calculated gamble with them than any other team. But I feel like there was enough promise from those young guys that it was worth taking that gamble.
Yeah, there's a lot of it. The Flyers are an interesting team for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's let Chris go because he's got a concert to go to. Okay.
Go enjoy it, Chris.
Have
It's been
fun at your
as
show.
you said, 17 months since you've been able to do something that you absolutely fucking love. Go enjoy it.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of the
Thanks.
debate. I will very much enjoy watching this later on. Have a good night, guys.
See you, Chris.
See you soon, Chris.
That's Chris. Following SC.
He's gone.
Freedom. Free at last.
I'm just kidding, Chris. I love you, bud.
Love you, Chris. All right. Yeah. So it's Chris had, hey, 17 months. You gotta do it. So, but thank you, Chris, also for putting in the effort. Great job.
Hold on, I want to give us a little applause here for getting us to the point where he was able to go through his list, and it was maybe 3 minutes over where he wanted to leave. So good on us for not talking as much, Sean. Well done.
It really helps when my internet goes out and I actually can't talk.
You said it, not me.
Fair.
So who are we going to talk about next, Kev?
Okay, let's go back to the Central Division, and let's go to the Minnesota Wild, and that's Sean.
All right, Minnesota Wild. It is good. It's tough because they've got a good blue line that I feel like they need to find a way to protect and not lose for nothing. So I went with the 8 skaters. I went with them protecting 4 defensemen. So with them, they're a little handcuffed as well because Jared Spurgeon, Ryan Suter, and Jonas Brodin all have no movement clauses. They have to be protected. And then you've got Matt Dumba. And unless they make a trade before the 17th, I think they have to make sure that they protect their assets. Matt Dumba is worth more than any of the forwards that they have up there that are available or eligible to the expansion draft. So I have them protecting Matt Dumba at this point. And then you've got Matt Zuccarello and Zach Parise who are who have no movement clauses, so they have to be protected. So now you got 2 other forwards that need to be protected. Kevin Fiala, you have to protect. And then they just signed Joel Eriksson-Ek to a new contract. He is their shutdown center. Not even just shutdown center. They've been playing him with their Kirill Kaprizov, and he's been able to put up points. So you have to protect him. The big one that I think if they go 8 skaters that they would lose, because I think it's a no-brainer for Seattle at that point, would be Jordan Greenway. You have to pick Jordan Greenway if he's available from Seattle. But like I said, you look at that and you have to. I honestly think you have to do asset management here and protect Matt Dumba because I think he gets more in a trade potentially in the future than a Jordan Greenway does.
Yeah, if you went the 7-3 approach and then you're having to leave Dumba exposed, I think the likelihood of being chosen is very strong. Unless they can get one of those guys with a no movement clause to waive, and we haven't heard much about that, then you really are kind of forced into this route that Sean has outlined.
So Sean, you're protecting Andrew Hammond, the Hamburglar, on as a goaltender. Did you say that?
No, sorry. I am protecting Captain.
Okay. All right.
My apologies for not doing the goaltender. He is right now. I think he is the future of the for goaltending in Minnesota. As they did just sign Cam Talbot, but he is the future. He's 24 years old. I think he is going to be their starter, or at least their 1B going into next year. Cam Talbot might be a goaltender that Seattle looks at, but I think there are potentially better options out there for a fit in Seattle. So they may end up still having Talbot and Kakkonen as their tandem going into next season.
I'd be surprised if that's not the case. Kakkonen, he came out on the scene this year. I'm actually kind of curious on where he was with rookie voting for the Calder, but overall, he's definitely the future. 24 years old, like you said, Sean. He'll be a force to be reckoned with within the Minnesota Wild organization. I guess it is hard because you have Matt Dumba that could be exposed and you could lose him for nothing. Talk about protecting assets. He has 2 years left at $6 million. He's 26 years old, right shot defenseman. I feel like you'd be able to get a good deal within the NHL for a Matt Dumba. I know he's been on the trade block for a little bit here. I think that is a precursor to this expansion draft within the past 2 years, so that they're trying to manage their assets properly. But overall, they haven't been able to find a deal. Bill Guerin just stepping on the scene within the past year. It looks like he's doing a good job so far. It'd be a hard pill to swallow, I think, for letting Jordan Greenway to be picked by Seattle. He's 24 years old. He's an RFA after next year, and that would be hard. Along with I don't think a Marcus Foligno would be picked, but he's a good heart and soul that really showed his true colors this year. And Victor Rask, a former Calgary Hitman, he hasn't really shown much out of being an NHLer, but I feel like he could be a potential as well, along with Ryan Hartman. I feel like Ryan Hartman, he's been talked about a lot within the past 4 or 5 years. Surprisingly enough, he's only 26, so he's a young guy that could be picked as well. But you know what? Overall, I do respect who you did protect, because you're having a right shot defenseman that can move the puck and can be physical like Matt Dumba is. You do want to make sure that you can get something for him within a trade.
Excuse me. I agree with your list. What I disagree with is I don't know if it's a no-brainer to take Jordan Greenway. I look at a guy like Marcus. I just with where we think Seattle is structuring their team. I'm looking at a guy like Marcus Johansson might be a better fit. Jordan Greenway's defensive stats are not great. Marcus Johansson has some versatility. I may look there a little bit longer than Jordan Greenway. His upsize and his youth is good, but there is some questions about his defensive game. So I don't know if that's as no-brainer as you think. Also, there's Nick Bukestad, I think, is a good face-off guy as well. So I don't, but I do agree with your list. I'm just not sure that Jordan Greenway is the no-brainer there.
I just look at the Greenway as a physical power forward. The Brian, as Brian Burke calls them, the unicorns. He could be that, and I think you have. If you're Seattle, you take that gamble. Again, it's an easy gamble to make, in my opinion. Like, you look at Johansson, good, but he's 30 years old. And a UFA, right? So you have to make sure that you have a contract agreed upon so that he comes in. So I just look at that, and I think it just makes too much sense. If they do go 7-3, I think you're looking at you're like a Greenway, Foligno, and I think Bukestad. I still think they end up keeping Marcus Johansson unprotected again because he's a UFA. And the only reason they would go 7-3 is because you got Kalen Addison coming up as a right shot defenseman who could take over Matt Dumba's power play minutes.
Yeah.
And if you're going for a veteran, because there's a lot of young players that are going to be exposed within this draft that you could be like, yes, it's a no-brainer, or that you could see a potential, but you're still going to need some veteran presence on this team. And to your point, Kevin, Marcus Johansson, I think that's a good solid pick, or a Nick Bukestad. I think he is an underrated player that could play in your, maybe middle six to bottom six forward lineup. So you do need those veteran players within that dressing room to make sure that those young players can develop.
All right, Tyler, did you have anything to add there?
No, I'm all good.
All right, we're going to move on to Nashville, which is also Sean.
All right. This was interesting because I think Nashville might be trying. I don't know exactly what Nashville wants to do, but I have them doing 4-4, another 8 skater. Just because I look at their blue line, they've got Roman Josi, who has a no movement clause. He needs to be protected. He's the captain. Like, it's a no-brainer. Even if he didn't have a no-movement clause, you're protecting him. Ryan Ellis is very, very good. I don't think people realize how good of a defenseman he is. Matthias Ekholm. And then you've got a 22-year-old right side defenseman in Dante Fabro that I think you absolutely have to make sure you're protecting. So you gotta make sure that you're protecting 4 defensemen. And you also look up front, and there's not much there that really excites me. Philip Forsberg is the best forward that they have, that is available for this, is eligible for this draft. They've got, and then they need to figure out who else to protect, right? They've got two centers that should be good with Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansson, but haven't quite been able to turn into that. I think it might be partially because they need some better wingers with them, but and they just traded away Victor Arvidsson, but the other one is Luke Kunin. So I've got Forsberg, Johansson, Luke Kunin, and Duchene as the forwards they're protecting. I've got Yossi Ellis, Ekholm, and Fabro as their defense that they're protecting. And I've got Jussi Saros as who they're protecting in net. I think he is RFA. They don't actually. Oh yeah, he is an RFA, but he's 24. He's 26. They have the what does Ray Ferraro call him there?
The unmade bed. The
unmade bed coming up in the through the ranks. He'll be joining Askarov will be joining Nashville not this season but next season. So you still need to have a good goaltender, and Jussi Saros was one of those goaltenders who was if there was any player who I think was robbed of a nomination in awards, I think it would be Jussi Saros with the Vezina. He's so damn good. Like, as good as Pecorine is or was, he's 38, a UFA. You're going to protect Jussi Saros, and then you just have some players that are going to be interesting looks for Seattle with Mikael Granlund, who's a UFA. Colton Sissons is someone I think Seattle will definitely be looking at if he's available, especially if they're going to be looking at more of a defense out approach.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up Sissons. If I was going to make one change, I'd probably protect him instead of Cunnin, but you're going the younger, cheaper route there. Well, potentially RFA after this coming season, but it's a sound choice for your protected list as well.
I personally, with Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansson, I'm not sold on them. Whoever won the Johansson Seth Jones trade, I think we know who won that trade, which was Columbus. He hasn't really proven to me that he can carry the load like they thought they would, that they thought he would within where he's at with his career. He's 20 years old. He has 4 years left at $8 million. Matt Duchene has 5 years left at $8 million. Oh my God. And I would leave both of them exposed, to be completely honest with you, and hope that Seattle takes the bait. Right now, it seems like David Poile, and from what I'm hearing from the insiders, is that he's looking to make a deal. And I don't know why. Looking at this protection list, it doesn't look like there's much really there within that lineup that you really are salivating for. I would love to see a Mikael Granlund come back. Luke Kunin, I love him. I think that he's really underrated with where he's at a 23-year-old right winger. He has 1 more year left at 2.3. I don't know. Talk about managing assets and seeing where you're going to be at within the next few years. Yes, they have a lot of cap room within the next within this offseason. They have $22.8 million within cap room, which is a lot. So I think you really just. I think you got to take that risk within Seattle taking those cap hits off of you and roll with the young guys. So that's my only potential. I mean, like logically, Sean, the way you did it makes sense. But those are the two players that I would have within that lineup to be exposed.
Yeah, I completely get where you're coming from, Dev. With that, I look at it and like, who else? Like I just look at that and like, yeah, maybe Sissons for one of Duchesne or Johansson. I think that I can see that. I just look at that and like, there's no one that stands out to me as there's no one that stands out to me that does that has it, because I just think it's there's nothing. They have Eeli Tolvanen who stepped in. Looks like he's going to be something that everyone thought. They've got Luke Evangelista coming up. They've got Philip Tomasino coming up. They've got good young players coming up. But like in terms of who's eligible, if you don't protect Duchesne and Johansson, like who realistically makes sense that's going to have you're only going to lose one of them anyways. So you might as well just. Yeah, if I was to redo it, it would be probably Johansson, expose Johansson for Colton Sissons.
I would actually, I would probably leave both of them on Duchesne and Johansson unprotected. And
who would you protect instead of them?
Sissons.
Okay, Sissons and
Eric Hall is there, Yarncroke is there, Nick Cousins. I mean, those are guys that they're not going to be. Sorry, Kev, I kind of jumped on you there, man. Who would you protect?
Probably, one of those guys. You're right, Sean. They're only going to take one of them, so you're going to. And I just want to. I don't know. That's a lot of salary that you can get rid of, and you can tempt Seattle with taking one of those two. I think Colton Sissons is a guy that I think he's proven that he can handle big moments. I remember the finals a few years ago. I think he has the potential to be one of those guys. Like if I'm Seattle, I would be taking Colton Sissons. If Colton Sissons was available on my team for any team, I would love to have him. That's the type of guy that I would protect. In my mind, Matt Duchesne and Ryan Johansson have been paid money and haven't proven to be as effective. But
yeah, Colton Sissons is a solid sort of third line center. His career year is 15 goals and 30 points. So it's I completely understand why. I just looked at it and like, there's no one that I would be upset about losing if I protected. Sissons, if I protected Duchesne and Johansson, but I totally expect. This is what I would have done, but I do think that at least one of them will be unprotected going into this expansion draft, hoping that it opens up cap space for that. Like they're maybe hoping that it opens up cap space for them to do something.
All right, let's move on to St. Louis, which is Tyler.
Yeah, I had some difficulties with this one. So I'll just start by saying we got that I had Vladimir Tarasenko on the protected list. However, there is a report floating in the media via The Athletic that apparently he wants a trade. So we will look at that. I mean, I think still what they could potentially get back as opposed to losing him for nothing in the expansion draft. I would keep him on the protected list. Ryan O'Reilly's obvious. Braden Shen's obvious. Jaden Schwartz, not as obvious, but longest serving member of the Blues, I believe. Only 28 still, so definitely want to have him. Same as David Perron, although a little older, a key piece there. Then I've had a little more debate about it. Sammy Blais, I think they really believe in Sammy Blais, and he's still under contract for next season at $1.5 million. Then he's an RFA, so I think they're really committed to Blais. And then initially I had Zach Sanford protected, but Robert Thomas at 21 years old and an up-and-comer, what would be an attractive target for Seattle if he was available on the exposed group here. And then for defense, I've got Torrey Krug and Colton Parayko. I think those are a couple of obvious ones. And then I have Justin Falk on there as well, who can play both sides, and I think it's important for them to protect. But with St. Louis, I mean, I kind of had some struggles with this because, yes, they've been a good team in recent years, but then you look at their playoff result this year, getting swept in the first round, and think, well, maybe they won't be afraid to see somebody key go and potentially free up some cap space and retool from there.
I have a B. I do have. Can I start this one?
Sure.
Absolutely.
I think Jordan Kyrou would be a guy I would keep as well. I would expose Tarasenko, even if Tarasenko did. I would that now that he's if this is true, I would expose Tarasenko and I would keep a Jordan Kyrou. There's a lot of young forwards on that team that, going forward, that they do have the youth there in St. Louis is interesting. And in terms of they have some good, well-roundedness, but Jordan Kyrou would be one that I would be keeping. I do agree with you about Sammy Blais for sure. I'm glad you found a way to get Robert Thomas on there because that would have been a no-brainer for me for Seattle. That's a guy that you almost like. That's almost the face of the franchise type of guy. But Jordan Kyrou would be the one that I had my one, I would say.
Yeah.
For me, I don't know if I would protect David Perron. He's 33 years old. He's a UFA at the end of next year. You have a lot of RFAs that could potentially, I'm not saying they're going to be a David Perron, but you had Sanford on there, Zachary Sanford. Ivan Barbashev, I think he is a bit of an underrated player. He hasn't really played up to where you want him to be. He's 25, RFA this year. And then you also have, like Kevin said, Jordan Kyrou. I think you got to. I think you have to protect him overall. On the back end, Justin Falk. Man, that's a big cap hit until 2027. Holy. He's 29. I feel like I know Vince Dunn has been on the chopping block within potential trade out of St. Louis, but overall he's 24. He's an RFA this year. If you can try and find a dancing partner that would want to take a Vince Dunn off of your hands and get some sort of draft picks or another blue chip prospect, if you will, out of whoever is wanting to dance with you for Vince Dunn, I think that is good as well. But those are kind of the RFAs, the young guys that I think that they're potentially would want to keep. Once again, it's about where your window is at within that organization. I think they're in a bit of a win now mode kind of mentality. And man, that one's a hard one. I don't know exactly where I would go within that, Tyler. So props to you for standing by your picks, but there definitely are a bunch of other players on there that you could definitely see getting protected over others.
Yeah, my sense with St. Louis is that, rightly or wrongly, having recently won a Stanley Cup, that loyalty may factor into some of these decisions. And again, I say rightly or wrongly because that, maybe that's not the shrewd way to go, but that's that's a feeling I have. Like David Perron, this is his third go with St. Louis, and then to lose him in the expansion draft, I think that would surprise me a little bit. But, as far as if I wanted I'd one more do-over on this, perhaps Perron at his age, maybe leave him off the protected list in exchange for one of those other forwards you mentioned.
You also have Jaden Schwartz, who's a UFA in this summer.
Yeah,
I don't know where. Again, we don't know where their negotiations are going with him. If they're not going well, then that's an easy unprotect, and then that opens a spot for Jordan Kyrou. I would protect Tarasenko just to protect the asset.
Yeah, that's my thinking there too.
Oh. I know he wants out, but you got to protect the asset. You don't want to lose him for nothing, even if that does open up $7.5 million in cap it, I still think you're going to be able to get something for him.
Yeah, he's too big of an impact player still to just see him go bye-bye like that.
Mm-hmm.
Another one, just quickly, Oscar Sundqvist is an interesting player, but as well.
Not to mention he did go through what he went through this year and the past year with cancer as well.
No, that's an Oscar Lindblom.
Lindblom, sorry. There you go.
The other Oscar.
Me with names. My apologies.
But yeah, I'm trying to move this, but I have opinions, and I'm like, we got to move it. That I have opinions, but the one thing I will say though is to me, I don't know if losing Tarasenko to the expansion draft is as tragic for the St. Louis Blues as everybody thinks.
Yeah,
I think that they have enough depth on there, on that roster, that they don't have the dynamic. That doesn't have the dynamicness of it, but they have the depth that they can cover for it.
They do, but it's about protecting the asset. Would you rather lose Tarasenko for a second round pick at the very least, or nothing? That's where I'm at. And that's like very least. I still think that there are going to be GMs out there looking at Tarasenko as and say like, okay, is he healthy? If he's healthy, can he be a 25 to 30 goal scorer?
Well, is that second round pick going to be Zachary Sanford or Ivan Barbashev or Jordan Cairo? Like those are the questions that are very apparent. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, you can lose a second for him, but is that second going to be a NHL player?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Winnipeg, the final of the Western Conference, and that is Devin.
Hello. So I got to start with the no movement clause of Blake Wheeler. Surprisingly enough, I did protect Kyle Connor. I know that's a big shock. You have Mark Scheifele, Nikolai Ehlers, Pierre-Luc Dubois on that as well. That were kind of no-brainers for me. If you're kind of wondering why I didn't pick Paul Stastny, he's 35 and he's a UFA this year. Going down the list again, you have Adam Lowry, who is 28. He's signed until 2026. Andrew Kopp, who goes up and down the lineup. He can be in your top six or easily enough within your middle six that he can move up and down your lineup depending on whether or not there's some injuries or not. So that's my forward group. If you look at the defensive core, Josh Morrissey, no-brainer. Neil Pionk, no-brainer. And you know what? If I can understand the argument if you want to go potentially a Sami Niku or a Dylan DeMello, but I went to Logan Stanley. I thought that he's 23 years old. He's an RFA this year. He's a big defenseman that I feel like he's really shown his true colors within the NHL and being able to play at this level. Even though he is a massive body, I think that he has a good potential to be a not exactly obviously the same as a Giordano Chara within this league, but he can make a big impact. Physical defenseman, he can move the puck well, and that's the biggest thing within big defensemen is that if you can hit, great, but you need to be able to move that puck, and I feel like he definitely has been able to do that within this year. So that's why I have him over DeMello and Sami Niku, and then obviously Connor Hellebuck. He's a phenomenal goalie. He won the Vezina last year, and that was a no-brainer. But overall, that's what I have.
I'm impressed that you got Logan Stanley on that list. I mean, I think if you go by what have you done for me lately, he was an impact player for the Jets in their playoff run here. If we can call it a run, it was only 8 games, but yeah, no, I think that's a very sound choice there.
Yeah, I was listening to the Oilers YYC podcast for their playoff preview against the Jets, and they completely, and all of us completely underestimated the Winnipeg Jets defense, but specifically, and I'm not trying to embarrass anybody, but I think we really underestimated what Logan Stanley brought to the team.
Yeah.
So that's I have no problem with your list. I think it's perfect. I don't have an issue.
The only issue I have is, and it's just where Winnipeg is at, is leaving Mason Appleton exposed. Like, yeah, it's just I really like what he brings, and I think it's going to be an interesting decision with Seattle to whether they go Mason Appleton or they go out on the blue line with someone like a Dylan DeMello.
Yeah.
So
I
then,
mean, it just
what would
kind of
you?
comes down to numbers there. I think.
That's the thing, is I don't know who I would take off. It's just I look at them like, oh, Mason Appleton, ooh, Dylan DeMello. Like I understand. I think Logan Stanley's the right pick on the blue line, but leaving Dylan DeMello, who I think is a really good pairing with Josh Morrissey, and then as well as Mason Appleton, who is he's a buzzsaw. Like I love watching him play in a third line role. I really like him. He's only 25. He's under team control for a few more years. He's an RFA next season. Like I look at that and I go, I don't know what I would change, but I would hate to leave Mason Appleton exposed.
If I was going to go through it, it'd be a very 51 to 49% mix of, okay, I think if I'm going to protect Appleton, I would have to expose Lowry. That contract, it probably won't age that well, considering he has his contract is up in 2026. He's 20 years old. Yes, the cap hit is very, very minimal, just a shade under $3 million. The only other person I could think of, or player that I could think of to take off there, would be an Andrew Kopp. But you have team control within this year to get him under contract, which could be a lot less than Adam Lowry. But yeah, man, I'm with you. And as far as DeMello goes, I really wished and hoped that Calgary was able to pick him up at the trade deadline. He was a good player, and I thought that he could have been a massive impact player within that Calgary lineup. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's left unprotected, that Seattle would take him.
All right, that is the Western Conference. So now here, as I just write this down for my time stamping, we will now go, and Chris's teams. So now we go to the Eastern Conference, and we're going to start with the Atlantic Division. We've already had Chris's Boston, so that means we're going to jump on to Buffalo. And again, if you guys have any comments, questions, please feel free to add them in there. But we had Boston and Detroit. That's Chris's. So we have 5 teams to go here. I'll start with the Buffalo Sabres, which was me. So this was not easy because I think there's a number of different ways that you can go. But the forwards, Jack Eichel, Sam Reinhart, Victor Olofsson, I think those are no-brainers. Jeff Skinner is an unfortunate no-brainer too, because he has a no-movement clause. Anders Bork, I think that's going to be, I know that's going to be a bit of a controversial one, but he's the guy that they got for Taylor Hall. I do think he's got some goal-scoring ability, so that's why I went him. Cody Eakin, I still think has some potential as well, and I went with Casey Middlestat. That would be the reason I went there is I think that would be, it's either between Middlestat and Thompson, and I think Seattle's going to be interested in both. And if I can see if I can get something for Casey Middlestat, which I think he would work very well in Seattle, I would like to do that. And then defenseman, I went Dahlin, Ritzelainen, Miller, Yoki-Haru on that end as well. I think I screwed that up though.
You did.
Okay. So my apologies. Okay, let me fix this quickly. I'm gonna go down.
You drop Yoki-Haru.
Oh, I did drop Yoki-Haru. Okay, correct. You're right.
Yeah.
I dropped Yoki-Haru and kept Linus Ullmark. I know that he's probably not going to sign in Buffalo, but that's not. I do think that's someone you probably ultimately want to protect. And Yoki-Haru has been a guy of potential. So let me do that again. Eichel, Reinhart, Olofsson, Eichel, Middlestat, Skinner, and Bork. Dahlin, Ristolainen, and Miller defense, and Linus Ullmark as the goaltender.
On the forwards there, I don't think I would protect Cody Eakin. I think I would go either Tage Thompson. Actually, no, I would go with Tage Thompson over Eakin. He's 30 years old. You don't have that much team control within him. He's a UFA after this year. So overall, that's where I go with the forwards. Otherwise, I'm on board with you. It's a bit of a different story on the back end. You left Jake McCabe exposed. He's 27. Yes, he's a UFA this year, but I feel like he's very attached to this organization considering they drafted him. And then you do have Yoki Haru, who is 22 years old. He's a right shot defenseman, which is ridiculously hard to find. Yoki Haru, he was quarterback in that number one power play in Chicago. So it's kind of a hard thing to really go away from him, especially with the Colin Miller being a UFA after this next year. He's 20 years old, and man, I understand your thought process behind it all, but those are the two with Jake McCabe and Henry Yoki Haru that would be kind of contentious on my part.
Go ahead, Tyler.
In regards to Eakin, I mean, you could also maybe consider leaving him exposed and protecting Gergensons. I mean, Gergensons is about the same price, but under contract for one more year and a couple of years younger, also a center. But this is like a number of other, let's say, weaker teams. I mean, you can debate a number of these selections.
Yeah. The big one for me is Tage Thompson. I think he is a big part of that future in Buffalo. A lot of the big pieces in Buffalo are still young. And I think he's part of that. Devin, I think I completely agree with you with Tage Thompson over Cody Eakin. But it's one of those things where you just you got to find a way to protect your assets as well. I know there's a lot of talk that there's a lot of talk on Ristolainen wanting out, but you got to protect it and and find a way to get assets for him. It's other than Thompson for Eakin, I think that list is pretty solid there, Kev.
It's tough too because it's the other side of that is with like not protecting Cody Eakin, fine, okay, but there's not a lot of veteran presence in Buffalo, and you still will need that. And I think you look at a Middlestat and a Ristolainen as an example. I think that's someone that if they are exposed, Seattle wants to take, and you are going to lose them. So, but it's not an easy list for sure.
You definitely have a Dustin Tatarski from trying to emulate Pierre Maguire back in whenever that was of maybe 2010
World Junior, I think, or 2009 World Junior.
Yeah, right around there. Yeah, I'm totally joking, obviously, but I think Ullmark is a good pick.
Unbelievable save by Tokarski.
There you go. But that's better than mine. Mine's way up here. Yours a bit lower. I like that.
I don't want to go full Pierre.
All right. Let us hop to the Florida Panthers and Tyler.
Hold on, Tyler. I'm just going to take this. This is a shot because I do not agree with who the fuck you are going to be protecting. All right, this is a shot of tequila. This is for you, and this is for the Florida Panthers.
Yeah, I guess the problem is I don't know much about the Panthers. I mean, for me, obviously Barkov and Huberdeau are obvious ones. Hornquist is I concede is controversial, but a veteran player I don't think they want to lose. So that's kind of why I have him on my list. Frank Vetrano, who's a UFA after this season, 27-year-old winger. Anthony Duclair, I think, is a fairly straightforward one there. Noel Acciari and Carter Verhaeghe. I'm kind of throwing darts on this one a little bit. On defense, Ekblad, is an obvious one. Keith Yandel with the no movement clause. I haven't heard that he wants to waive it or is willing to, so he has to stay on. And then Mackenzie Weegar, and then obviously Bobrovsky and net. But yeah, I'm open to suggestions here. My knowledge on Florida is not as deep as some of these other teams I was assigned.
You know what? I'm going to jump in here.
Deb, before you say that, I have one thing to say. You're throwing darts, Tyler, and your aim's not good.
Yeah, well, it isn't when I throw darts.
And let me tell you why.
Please, that's why we're having this show.
Absolutely. I would have Patrick Hornqvist as much as he is a veteran presence within the lineup. You have Sam Bennett. You have Alex Wenberg. You have Brandon Montour. And you have, you have to protect Bobrovsky. Obviously, Chris Drieger, I thought that he played a better role within that lineup as a goaltender. But Alexander Wenberg, he didn't really work out in Columbus. I thought that he played a really good role within the strategy within Florida. Sam Bennett, you gave up a second rounder and a second rounder last year. I can't remember his name, but I know that he's a two-way forward that's going to be coming to Calgary, and I'm excited about him.
I'm just not sure that he's high on Seattle's radar, but yes.
Man, if I'm Seattle, I'm picking him.
Yeah, but you're a Flames guy.
Well, no,
the
reason why, and I think it is Sam Bennett within your picking. Sam Bennett's number one on that forward list, but then you also have Brandon Montour potentially getting picked.
Montour, I see that one, the potential there for sure.
For sure, but it's Sam Bennett. He, as I was saying this morning to Kevin and Sean, is that you'd rather want to reel in a tiger than trying to get a fucking house cat to be a tiger kind of thing, right? So I just see so much potential within Sam Bennett's game. I think that he showed so well that he can contribute on a different level than he did in Calgary, in Florida, and Seattle, especially with it being in that Pacific Conference, will want to show that Calgary really missed out on him overall. So that's where I'm kind of sitting within that. Good job on Noel Acciari. He is a heart and souler. He's very much a Stefan Yell-esque player for your Calgary fans out there. He blocks shots. He's a good defensive player. He'll be on your PK.
And he was great in Boston.
Yeah, exactly. And Carter Verhaeghe, what a find he was. He was kind of bouncing around within the NHL, and he found a good spot. And I mean, who doesn't play well with Jonathan Huberdeau? Just saying. So good. Yeah. Overall, you can't really go wrong with that. But other than
darts throwing,
exactly. You need to work your darts at Pig and Duke when you come into town here.
Yes.
The Sam Bennett. I think you have to protect Sam Bennett, and as much as Noel Acciari is a good sort of depth guy, like he's had one 20-goal season, and the rest has been he's been a depth guy. Yeah, he can be all that. I just think if you're making that decision, you might have to make a tough decision on Noel Acciari to protect Sam Bennett over him. And then you got Alex Wenberg, but he is a UFA. So again, it all comes down to what are you looking at in terms of where the negotiations are going. But I like Verhaeghe. He's a 25-year-old. He's got some upside. He scored 18 goals this season in 43 games. And it's only his second season in the league. I think you have to make sure you protect him, unless Yandel is willing to waive. They're going to have to give up like a Nudavara or a Montour. Yeah. And don't sleep on Nudavara. I think he is a very good, solid defenseman who can slide into your second pair on most teams. And if he's available, he's a right He's a right side defenseman that I think is, if he's available, that he's a left shot guy who plays the right side. But if he's available, Seattle will definitely be taking a hard look at him.
For me, I have two thoughts on this. It was, to me, my list would be between Sam Bennett and Anthony Duclair, to be honest with you. Sorry, Devin. Sam Bennett takes too many dumb penalties for me to be super excited about him. I don't think Seattle looks at him. I think Seattle will probably look defense. In my mind, I think there's just too much there that well,
the Yandel factor works into that, right? Like if he has to go on Florida's protected list, then there's going to be somebody available. On defense,
I'm not as super outraged that you didn't protect Sam Bennett over some of these other guys. I understand why Devin and Sean see that as a mistake, but I'm not. That's not an outrage to me. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they find a way to either get someone, hopefully, to get either that Yaniel or a Bobrovsky contract out of the way. If you're giving up Chris Driedger, you're going to have to, maybe they're going to try to add, sorry, Tyler, I have to use this word, 2 hours in, almost 2 hours in, sweetener.
Yeah.
Haven't done that in a long time, man. It's been it's been probably a full off season.
It's been a while, yeah. Now our spreadsheet here says Bobrovsky has a no movement clause. I'm assuming he's not willing to waive, so
he won't waive it. And Driedger is someone I think unless Seattle's willing to give him one hell of a deal, I think he's going to try and test UFA. And Kevin, I see where you're coming from, but I think you're coming from that as a Flames fan, where you've seen Sam Bennett make those mistakes, but you look at what he did with Florida, and you kind of wonder, can he be at least a second line center for Seattle if he's available? And you look at what he did with Florida, and I think Florida's going to look at that and go, we gave up Emil Heineman, and a second-round pick for him at the deadline. Are we really leaving him exposed? I do not think so, and I think they're going to find a way to keep him to protect him, and it might be at the expense of a Patrick Hornqvist or a Noel Acciari.
Yeah. I mean, even with Florida, though, he took some pretty terrible penalties that probably cost him the series. So that's the other thing. That's the other thing too. And that has been an ongoing issue with Sam Bennett following Sam Bennett.
You have to take the good with the bad with him, but he put up 15 points in 10 games and 5 points in 5 games. So 15 points in 10 games in the regular season and 5 and 5 in the playoffs. And this team Florida is building something, and I think Sam Bennett is part of that. They will find a way to keep him.
He's a player that they don't have within the lineup. The grittiness. I believe he broke Valerie Berry's record with that 15 points in 10 games. Valerie.
Pavel.
No, it's Valerie. Trust me, guys. Trust me. I'm joking. Of course, it's Pavel. Yes, I understand that, guys.
For Florida.
I know. Jesus Christ, guys. You know I'm bad with names, so give me a break, for God's sakes.
All right. Let's
Shut up,
move
Tyler.
this. All right, let's move this forward. We are now at the Clarence Campbell champion Montreal Canadiens. Oh, I forgot Tampa on our list here, by the way. So they're next. Who has Tampa?
I do.
Okay. All right. Montreal's next.
Yeah.
And that is me. I know this is going to be contentious because I went with 4D. And I just looked at it. There's so many UFAs available there. There's so many, and you look at who else is available. Like the only forward that I feel bad about leaving exposed would be Jake Evans. But I looked at what they were doing and how successful they have been with having such a strong blue line. I think they're going to try and keep that. So I have them protecting Jeff Petrie with the no movement clause, Shea Weber, and Ben Sherratt and Joel Edmondson. And then up front, you got Carey Price with the no movement clause. So, and of course, he's arguably top 2 goalies in the world right now. I think you can still make that argument with him when he's on his game. And then up front, I've got Josh Anderson. Brian Burke calls him, as they call him, unicorn. You got to keep him. Brendan Gallagher's the heart and soul of that roster. You got to keep him. They just signed Tyler Toffoli. God, that must be my Canucks fan coming up. I'm not happy about saying that name. and then I've got Barry Kotkaniemi as the other one. The big exposures that happen with that are Jake Evans. You've got Arturi Lehkonen, who's an RFA. You've got potentially Philip Deneau as a UFA, but as a UFA, I think it's a calculated risk to keep him exposed. You've got Jonathan Drouin, but I think he's on his way out of Montreal as well, and he got it. We talked about asset management. I think you have to start looking at what makes that team as good as they is, and I believe it's the blue line, and all their top end players are younger and exempt from this draft. So that's why I went with 4D. I looked at where Montreal is. You've got Suzuki and Caulfield that are the 2 big guys who are going to drive the offense going forwards. And they've got a lot of UFAs and players that need new contracts. So I think it's a lot of uncertainty. So I think you go with the certainty of having that top 4 and adding a second-year Romanov to that blue line and hope that it can help you build on what was a very surprising but successful year for the Canadiens.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you go by, when we just saw them play last night, right? So we're all very well versed in the Canadiens, and I see where Sean is coming from. Unfortunately, the draft protection rules here mean if you want to go with the 4D, then now you're leaving. I mean, on this list we've got Deneau, Armia, Lehkonen, and Evans all available for selection. To me, that's makes me feel a little uncomfortable. There's all some pretty good players there. If I were making this list, I'd probably go the 7-3 format and take a chance on either Gerard or Edmondson being exposed. But I mean, I like the logic of what Sean's done here.
Completely understand where Sean's coming from, but I disagree with it. I think you keep Edmondson, you expose Ben Sherratt. He has 1 year left. He's 30 years old. Yes, he is a formidable defenseman who can throw down with pretty much anybody within this league. But you're like Tyler was saying, you're leaving a Deneau, an Armia, Lehkonen, Jake Evans, even a Paul Byron exposed. To me, those 2 of those 3 of those 4 players are more important than a Ben Sherratt within that. And within saying that, I believe that you do have a Romanov that is going to be able to step up within that lineup and maybe help with the Brett Kulak, who can play in that kind of bottom 3 role within that lineup. Help if Seattle does take a Ben Sherratt, then they're able to supplement that within those 2 players. But it's losing a Joel Noel Armia, a Philip Deneau. I know he's an RFA. Both those guys are an RFA, but I feel like they are
UFA.
UFA. Thank you. That they're able to re-sign them to a deal that is going to be formidable for them, and a Jake Evans. I think if Jake Evans is exposed, he will be snapped up instantly. That is the guy that Seattle really wants to be available so that they can take him. So a Ben Sherratt over those 3 guys, I have a hard time with that argument.
Yeah, I would go 7-3 here if I was Montreal as well, but I do understand why you do it. You don't but I just think you want to at least take a shot at signing a Philip Deneau, and you really do not want to lose a Jake Evans, who, if you lose Deneau, he is going to be the guy that replaces him. So that's that. I'd go that way, but I totally understand why you go 4-4 as well.
Yep.
All right, my next, and I am the Ottawa Senators, and I know that there's going to be some controversy on my list. So, but it's tough because I wanted to go. I was considering going 4-4 here. But the Sens defense is just, you can't. There's just not enough quality there to do that, and there's too much quality in forward, which is part of the problem here. So I have decided I'm going to protect Matt Murray. I'm going to give him another shot. I'm going to see if I know that there's other goaltenders there, but there's no one there that has stood out enough for me to say So I've decided, okay, I'm going to keep Matt Murray. Defense, I went Thomas Chabot, Victor Mete, and Nikita Zaistev. It's just in terms of defense, it's hard to. There's only two other options, which is Josh Brown and Cody Gelbov, and they haven't played enough for me to protect them. Forwards, this is where this gets controversial. Drake Batherson, I think that's a no-brainer. Brady Tkachuk, I think that's a no-brainer. Connor Brown, also a no-brainer. Evgeny Dadonov, I did debate keeping him off, but I ultimately decided to keep him. Ryan Dzingel, I think, is one of those guys you do want to protect a bit. Logan Brown, a guy that hasn't played much, but I do think they still see a lot of potential. And I did debate keeping him off. It was between Colin White, Chris Tierney, and Nick Paul, and I decided to keep Nick Paul because I do think he's a valuable guy. It's also a guy that I could see Seattle being interested in as well. I think it would be a really good fit with Ottawa and Seattle. If you can get him for an asset, that would not be a bad thing. But I know that I'm going to hear it about Colin White and Chris Tierney. But there's a really strong forward group in Ottawa. There's a really weak back end defense and goaltending in Ottawa.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Well, I think with goaltending, Kev, it's just we just don't know really what they have. Like, they wanted to give Joey Decourt a shot, and then he got hurt. So now you're in a kind of a tough spot here. Do you protect the known entity there in Matt Murray, or do you leave him exposed, which, with that $6.25 million cap hit maybe isn't the worst thing to have him go, but then you're really in on an unproven, right? So it's a bit of a tough situation there on the goaltending choice. So I get it there, and yeah, I don't mind your list. You can debate it, between White and another forward, certainly.
For me, leaving exposed, Chris Tierney is hard. Maybe not a Zaitsev over a Josh Brown. Just because of their age. Josh Brown is 27. Zaitsev is 29. They're both right shot defensemen, but Zaitsev being older and having a 4.5 cap hit until 2024. To me, Josh Brown, he's not as good, but that cap hit and the fact that he's UFA after this year really kind of speaks more towards where Ottawa is kind of trending. Marcus Holberg, I thought that he played very well within the kind of situation that he has been in, getting just pelted with shots. Obviously, within that defensive core, you don't have much of protection. I thought that he did a very good job last year and the year before with kind of having a tandem and / having other goaltenders like Craig Anderson that getting hurt. So that would be a good swap out for a Matt Murray, obviously a Philip Gustafson as well, and a Joey Decourt. Like talk about throwing darts for Tyler, but Kev, this is very similar. If you're going on the goaltender route and potentially even the forwards outside of Brady Tkachuk, Logan Brown, Nick Paul, who's really kind of shown that he's done pretty damn well. And I don't know if you would, if I would be protecting Dadonov. I mean, somebody's got to score within that lineup, but It being 32 and the fact that he has 2 years left at $5 million, the only reason why I would have him on is the fact that, yes, he scores goals and that he would help you get over the cap. That's the only reason why I would kind of keep him. But, God, you do have the up-and-comers of a Josh Norris, a Tim Stützle, a Schneider that's coming up on the defensive end there. I think that your choices are very, very valid.
Did we lose?
I think Sean's gone. Yeah.
Sean is frozen.
My thing is, I think. Oh no!
No, you're delayed. You're delayed.
John.
No, you're there.
You're here.
Yeah,
You're here.
I think you're delayed, Dan.
Okay. My thing is, okay. Look, Logan Brown is the one I don't think you protect. For me, it's you protect one of Chris Tierney or Colin White over Logan Brown.
Okay. I feel bad that Sean is stuck.
I don't know what's going on.
He's like in the parallel universe here or something.
Yeah.
He's dancing now. He's like,
he is. He's down.
Go protect Logan Brown.
Yeah, you've been moving the whole time here. Unlike earlier when it looked like you were asleep, but
yeah.
Okay. Anything else on Ottawa there? I think we got his.
I'm so frustrated. Yes, I want to talk.
2 hours and 20 minutes, and we are off the rails. The train is in the woods and it's burning.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like Sean's talked enough. We should probably move on, considering it is.
You be quiet.
2 hours 20.
I'm sure he'll get back in sync here in a moment. But
yeah, okay.
All right. Am I in sync now?
I think
you're in sync. You're kind of in sync. You were. Yeah, okay. You are. Yes, now you are. Okay.
All right. So, Chris Tierney and Colin White, one of those need to be protected, in my opinion. Logan Brown is 23 and hasn't made the NHL yet. Yeah, while those two have. Yes, they're older. Well, Colin White's only 1 year older, and I just think you have to protect one of those. Devin's right in looking at Josh Brown as a potential protection spot there. And then for me, I do not protect Matt Murray. I hope that Seattle decides to take him, and you protect one. You protect probably Philip Gustafson. He was in 9 games. He had the best stats for the goaltenders in Ottawa, but it's as Devin said, it's throwing darts and hoping for the best here after your especially up front after the Brady Tkachuks, the Drake Bathersons, and I would throw in the Connor Browns and Nick Pauls. I think those are the 4 that you definitely protect, and then after that, I think it just comes down to what your a personal preference.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on here to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Devin?
Tampa Bay Lightning, though.
All right, the Tampa Bay Lightning. Sorry, I forgot.
Let's say best for last. There.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So Tampa is one of my teams, and I this one I think it was maybe one of the most straightforward of all the teams. Tampa's so deep, so inevitably somebody good is going to be left unprotected here. But I have Kucherov, Stamkos, Point, Palat, Gordon, Johnson, and Cirelli all protected in the forward group. On defense, Hedman, McDonough, Sergachev, Eric Chernak being left unprotected. That one I have a little bit of unease with that, but still, Hedman's an obvious one. McDonough and Sergachev I think are still must keeps, and then Vasilevsky in goal. I mean, you guys can try and debate it, but I think that one's a pretty obvious list.
How do you have Braden Point protected? I can't even.
Yeah, what are you thinking? No.
And then after Nikita Kucherov's comments yesterday, with his shirt off,
that was great.
I would protect Curtis McElhinney over Vasilevsky.
Yeah.
No, honestly, like the only person that you have off there that's kind of a hard pill to swallow. Not the only, but is Eric Chernak. Like if he is exposed, he will be picked up. I'd be very surprised if Seattle decides to pass on him, or if they decide to go, if they need a bit of a leader, because they do see a lot of depth within the defensive realm of unprotected players within the NHL through this draft, that they could take a potential Alex Killorn off their hands. They talked about him being a massive a leader within that room, and the quiet leader that, let me show you how it's done, kids, kind of mentality. So other than that, yeah, it's kind of hard not to let that happen. And to Kevin's credit, I'll let Kevin talk about Matthew Joseph, because that's another possibility as well.
Yeah, I don't know if Tyler Johnson is the obvious, or Eric. There's a number of obvious factors from Tampa. We talked about him: Alex Killorn, Tyler Johnson. If you're not protecting him, I agree with Tyler in terms of protecting him. Guy went to waivers 3 times, by the way. Eric Chernak, that's another tough one. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know it was 3 times. Sorry, that surprised me.
Eric, but Matthew Joseph, that's a guy, great passer. That would be the guy that I would think that Seattle may target, but I think there's absolutely a lot of options there in Tampa. There's no question about it.
All right, here comes Sean's hot take. They go 8 skaters. They don't go 7 and 3.
What?
That's a pretty spicy.
Why?
Take. No, they've got to protect 7 forwards.
Well, you got no. I think they're going to want to keep that blue line together, at least the top 4, or at least their top 4. So they're going to protect Chernak as the 4th defenseman. They will expose Tyler Johnson, Andre Palat, and Yanni Gourde.
Wow. You'd have to.
They're only losing 1.
Yeah, you would. That would be the way you'd have to do it if you're going to go the other route. But geez,
they'll only lose 1. It's likely Yanni Gourde, but they've got Alex Barr-Boulet coming up. They've got Matthew Joseph coming up.
Yeah.
They've got Mitchell Stevens coming up. They've got Ross Colton as well. The more I look at it, and the more I think about, I think Chernak is someone that they value, and they've got depth up front. The other thing is they also need to lose cap space.
Yeah.
So if they expose 3 players, Palat, Gordon, Johnson, all with $5 million or more cap hits, and they're good, useful players. Tyler Johnson's from Spokane. He's a Washington kid. Not to mention Palat and Gourde. They're all 3 of them are 29, 30 years old too.
Man, I respect your thought process there. That's a hard pill to swallow if you're going to lose Yanni Gourde. I don't think they'd take a Plot. I don't think that they take Tyler Johnson, even though he is from Spokane area. Yanni Gourde makes the most sense. He's 29, 5.1 cap hit for the next 4 years, and he has more of a chance to make a bigger impact on that lineup than a Andre Palat or a Tyler Johnson. But it would make more sense not to lose an Eric Chernak. He is a unsung hero on that back end. And you know what, Sean? Yeah, props to you for potentially thinking that. But oh man,
the other thing is no matter what they do, Cal Foot's going to be available.
Small Cal Foot is going to be available. That's right.
Yeah. Let's move on to the Toronto Maple Leafs here.
Best
Devin,
for last, baby.
That's not the last, though, because we still have another division. So nice try. Well done.
No, but you know what I'm saying. So I'm going to protect Riley Nash, Wayne Simmons. No, I'm just kidding. obviously. So, oh man, yep. We are this far in where I'm joking about this shit. So, anyways, Austin Matthews, John Taves, he has a no movement clause. Mitch Marner, William Nylander are going to be protected. So I'm going to go 4 defense on top of that. You have Jake Muzzin, Riley, Brody, Hull, and then you have Jack Campbell. Does anybody have any quibbles with that? Because if you do, you need to get the fuck off.
Well, other than calling Tavares Taves, but yeah, sorry, Devin, I had to. That's good. I mean, the Toronto's Achilles has always been their defense. So the more defensemen you can protect there, I think that that's sound. And they gave up a lot to bring in Jake Muzzin. Morgan Riley's a heart and soul core leader piece on that team that they drafted. Don't want to see him go. TJ Brody, I thought was pretty good for them. Whole more debatable. I mean, they just re-signed Travis Dermott, so I would assume he's going to be protected. Although that news was just announced today.
Who'd you leave exposed outside of if you're going to get Dermott?
Well, it would have to be Hull. You keep Muzzin, Brody, Riley, and Dermott on your defense, and then the 4 forwards that you had there.
I can't quibble with anything Devin's done with Toronto. They signed Dermott, but they need to get that done to have a defenseman signed to expose to the expansion draft. Yeah. I would expose Justin Holl over Dermott. I would protect Justin Holl over Dermott.
Like he's done here, yeah.
Yeah, I have nothing to quibble over what Devin's done here.
Yeah, me neither. I think that's probably pretty easy one to do in Toronto there. So we have one more division to go. And other than the Philadelphia Flyers, we have 6 teams. So thank you everyone for sticking through this. But we're going to start with the Carolina Hurricanes. Devin, what do you got?
Yeah, this is as far as forwards go, Aho, Jordan Staal, their captain. He has a no-movement clause. Tero Teravainen, Nito Niederreiter, Trocheck, and Warren Fogle are going to be protected on the front end there. But then on the back end, you have Dougie Hamilton and Jacob Slavin. Man, this is where shit gets kind of dicey. You have a Brett Pesce, who's a right shot 26-year-old defenseman. You have protection for him until 2024. And then you have Brady Shea, who's 27, brings a bit of a different aspect to that defensive core. He's a bigger guy who can, I don't know if you remember the very first puck drop within the bubble last year, but he leveled his old teammate there. I don't remember who it was, but he set the tone for Carolina within that bubble, and he's 27, left-hand shot, UFA after 2024, and so I actually protected Brett Pesce because he is a right shot defenseman, which is hard to find within the NHL, and he is a year younger and is a bit of a shade, or just over $1 million less per year than Brady Shea in that lineup. And then I obviously the breakout year of Alex Nedeljkovic as a goaltender. I think that goes without saying. You're not going to protect Peter Mrazek or James Reimer over top of him. So talk about another goalie who is a rookie that came into the league this year and, surprisingly enough, was on waivers earlier this year before he kind of went on his run. And if you're the Edmonton Oilers, you're kind of shaking your head about that. But those are my protected players.
My only quibble there, Dev, is Dougie Hamilton. They've already offered him up for a sign and trade type deal. I don't think the negotiations are going well. I think it's a better option to go Shea and Pesce as your protection but either way, they're losing a good defenseman because Jake Bean is ready to step in and be whoever takes, whether it's him or whether it's Carolina or Seattle.
Yeah, I'm with Sean there. I think, frankly, Hamilton is, I think, just more expendable, given some of the, where things might be at with the negotiation and some of his history there. I'd go with Shea instead. I think you might have forgot to mention Svechnikov.
Yeah, I was going to say.
There. Yeah, and that's you got to have him on there too. I think your group of forwards is, I have no debates over it.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah.
Warren Foegele does not need to be protected from my understanding, but other than that, I'm with everyone. I'll have to look. Okay.
He does.
Doug. Okay.
So yeah, I believe he does too.
Okay. I agree with Tyler and Sean though. I would leave Hamilton out. And try to see if you can get a forward, one of their really talented forward. Keep one of those in.
Yeah, I mean, do you think Seattle's really going to go after Dougie Hamilton?
Potentially, they might. He's 28 years old, red shot defenseman. They got to get enough over the cap within to make sure that they're cap compliant within the rules of the NHL. So then, if that's the case, then you potentially, you get a Brady Shea. It sounds like Brock McGinn, Jordan Martinook is going to be looking around to see whether or not he can get a better contract outside of Carolina, along with a Warren Foegele. I've heard whispers that Toronto's thinking about potentially looking at a Warren Foegele if they can't get a Zach Hyman re-signed, that'll be a possibility. But yes, my apologies on Svechnikov. Yes, I missed on him. He's a part of my protect list. But if you are a Seattle, you got to be talking to Dougie Hamilton's camp and seeing whether or not they're going to be able to do that. Because if you're not going to be able to re-sign Hamilton, you want a Brady Shea on that lineup within my protection list.
Fair enough. Let's go on to Columbus, which is also Devin.
Beautiful.
Sorry, did I cut someone off there?
Nope.
Okay,
probably good. Sean, but that's okay.
Well, I think his internet cut him off, so he's so stoic.
This is as stoic as I've ever seen Sean. He's literally just in peace.
He is in peace, and you know what? I'm happy for him that he's in peace, and he's not controversial within his takes. But going down the list, I have Cam Atkinson. He's been within the organization the longest. Talk about a heart and soul within that organization. Max Domi, obviously a big trade within Montreal to bring him here. Patrick Laine, Boone Jenner, Oliver Bjorkstrand, who kind of came on the scene within the past year and a half to 2 years. Jack Roslovic obviously came over with Patrick Laine for Pierre-Luc Dubois and Eric Robinson as well. I think that he'll be protected. On the back end, you have a no-brainer with Jones, Werenski, and Gavrikov. He's a good young player, Gavrikov, that I feel like overall he'll be a formidable defenseman. He's 25 years old. They have a bit of time to see exactly who he's going to become. He's not an RFA. He's a UFA at 2023. And obviously with the passing of the other goaltender within this organization, I actually had him protected over Jonas Kopersalo, and obviously a sad, very, very sad situation within that organization. The fact that they're losing him, but Jonas Kopersalo on the back end there is going to be my protection list.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the forwards, that's all pretty straightforward. I mean, if you really wanted to have Gustav Nyquist on your protected list, then Eric Robinson, I guess, would be the guy by default that I would drop off the list. But the rest of them there are must-haves. And then I like your defense, and you've covered the goaltending.
Yeah, I don't really have a huge problem with anything there on that.
It's
Sean?
For me, it's a coin toss.
Oh, you're
I'm
here.
still here, yes. To me, it's a coin toss between Eric Robinson and Kevin Stenlund. But I don't think there's a right or wrong answer either way.
Yeah.
All right, moving along. We did New Jersey, so now we're at the New York Islanders. Sean.
All right, I know Devin's not happy with what I did here. Did 7-3. Anders Lee, captain, got to protect him. Matthew Barzal, no brainer. He's the future of the franchise. Brock Nelson, you got, he's really good. Jordan Everly, Josh Bailey, and JG Pajot and Anthony Beauvillier. Hey, look, I said his name right. Or the seven forwards that I went with. And then I went with Ryan Pulock and Adam Pelech are the two no-brainer protections on the blue line that Islanders need to do. And then I went with Nick Leddy over Scott Mayfield just because I think Nick Leddy brings, when you look at their win now, they're in a win now sort of window, and I think Nick Leddy brings more to what is needed for the Islanders to take that next step and actually get to the Cup final and potentially win it than a Scott Mayfield. I know Devin will not like that, but that's what I went with.
Yeah,
and
this feels like my Hornquist pick with Florida too. I mean, these are teams that are in go for it mode now, and that's veteran presence, Cup pedigree, and all that. I like. And then
it's a real easy decision on goaltender with Varlamov, other than the fact that they do need to sign a goaltender to expose.
Oh man, yeah, exposing Mayfield I think is completely stupid. I'm sorry, Sean. I don't mean that to be disrespectful. Mayfield, he is a big, solid defenseman. Talk about a Barry Trotz style defenseman that is formidable. You can put him up and down the lineup easily enough within your top four, and you're not going to be worried what he's going to be bringing within that defensive core, especially the fact that you've been so high on Noah Dobson, the fact that he's going to be he's going to be a no-brainer defenseman within the next decade or so that could potentially run that power play and gain his confidence up with playing those easy minutes on that power play over Nick Leddy. And so to me, that I don't agree with protecting Nick Leddy. Otherwise, you know what, the forwards make 100% sense, and obviously Varlamov, that's a no-brainer.
So I have two. I agree with Devin that I would protect Mayfield over Leddy. I think that there's a possibility of a trade with Leddy as well. I think that's it. The other one that I'm gonna spicy take this. I haven't spicy taked anything yet, but I would protect Kiefer Bellows over Jordan Eberle.
That's another person that I definitely have within the Kraken's sights, and that they want to wrap up within their tentacles, because Kiefer Bellows, he came in this past year, played a few games, and he definitely has a potential to be a good NHLer. So Kevin, yep, you're right.
But other than that, I mean, there's not a lot to dispute there, I don't think.
No.
But Sean, were you going to say something though?
As I said, they're in a win now mode, so losing someone like a Kiefer Bellows wouldn't necessarily be great, but he's 23 and hasn't been able to crack the lineup. So,
but if you can keep him at a pretty cheap price, you could bring back Kyle Palmieri if you lose Eberle.
Yeah, I think it's a coin toss either way, and I just look at it and that Eberle is someone that is trusted in that organization, and I think they'll protect him.
Okay, all right. Let's move now on to the other team in New York, the Rangers. That is Tyler.
Yeah, the first three here are obvious, not just because of their stature, but also with the no movement clauses. So Panarin, Kreider, and Zibanejad, Strome and Buchnevich, I think, are pretty cut and dry as well to be on the protected list. Then it gets a little murkier. I mean, New York's a rebuilding team, but I've got Philip Cheadle and Brett Howden on the list simply because they're centers. And then on defense, Trouba is a must because of the no movement clause, but you'd probably want to have on there anyways. Then I've got Ryan Lindgren and Libor Hajek. I don't know how Hajek. I'm not sure how you say it, but again, we've got a couple of younger guys there that they're going to want to keep for rebuilding purposes, and then Alex Georgiev in goal.
I have zero quibble with that at all. I mean,
I finally passed the Devin test here tonight.
It's about time, damn it!
I know.
You do have Philip Giuseppe. He's a formidable player. Talk about where the upper brass within that organization, within the Rangers organization, is that it's a win now mode. Giuseppe's 27 years old. He's a UFA this year, but I feel like they've been patient with him in trying to make sure that he is. He's within this lineup, and surprisingly enough, Kevin Rooney, 28 years old, he's a UFA next year, and he's a grittier player that could potentially push over the edge and make sure that no one's going to really mess with this younger core. So other than that, yeah, man, you're good.
Yeah, they're going to have to make a decision on one of the younger players. I like Brett Howden more than potentially a Julien Gauthier, but I do think that they're going to have to make it. That's the decision that they have to make. I think Tyler, you have it right with the defense. No movement clause to Trouba, and then the rest is Lindgren's. I don't think people realize how good Lindgren is, and I think that's an easy one. Yeah. Hajek is Libor Hajek. I think is someone. Even if like you just look at who else is available, like you got Tony DeAngelo. Like they've already got parted ways with like that. He's not playing another game for the Rangers. I don't even. Seattle will not take him either. Yeah. I see we've got a comment from Sergeant Pickles on YouTube about that, saying they don't want DeAngelo, and I don't think they will. Yeah. They've been you look at what all the progressive moves that Seattle has made, they will not touch Tony DeAngelo. So I don't think you have to worry about that. I think
before we move on, I don't think that anybody within the NHL is going to touch Tony DeAngelo. I think his NHL career is done.
Yeah. I will say this: if any team touches Tony DeAngelo, the GM needs to be fired immediately.
Yep.
I think you're looking at I honestly think right now I think Seattle's looking at probably Julien Gauthier based off this list because I don't think they're gonna let go of Brett Howden. So.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. We have two more teams. I agree pretty much. I pretty much agree with Tyler's list on that. I don't have a heck of a lot of issue with that. The Pittsburgh Penguins. That is Sean.
What I went here is I looked at, you got your Malkin, your Crosby, Letang all have no movement clauses. They're key pieces, even though they're older. They're staying. You got Jake Gensel at 26. You're keeping him. Brian Rust, Kasperi Kapanen. They're keeping him. Jared McCann has really stepped in, has found a place there. You're keeping him. The real question up front is whether or not you're keeping Jason Zucker or Jeff Carter. I went with Jeff Carter just because I think the flexibility of him being able to play at center and the wing, and you do have Brian Burkett and Ron Hextall now in charge. I still think they're going to be going for it with Crosby and Malkin, yes, at least for one or two more seasons. So I think you're going to want to have that flexibility. And then you've got You've got I went with Brian Dumoulin and Marcus Peterson as the two other defensemen to protect, which leaves Mike Matheson available as well, and going from there. But I think those are the two better ones, as well as I went with Tristan Jarry as their goaltender. He's younger than DeSmith, and I still think he can with Ron Hextall now in charge. I think he's going to make it a priority to try and make sure that the goaltenders are getting the right coaching and development, and I think he can take another step.
My biggest thing is Jeff Carter. He's 36 years old. You have him for one more year. But I feel like Brendan Tanev, he's a brother of Chris Tanev. That's a family that is very dedicated to their craft and what they do. Tanev, he's a bit overpaid at 3.5 for the next 3 years. And it is hard to walk away from Jason Zucker from what they have given up for him. So that, and especially being younger, Zucker and Tanev are both 29. So it depends on whether or not you want a role player or you want a potential sniper within Jason Zucker, who hasn't really thrived within Pittsburgh. But if you think you're of a good place to thrive, that would be Pittsburgh, considering your centers of your top two centers of Malkin and Crosby. And if he hasn't thrived within that environment, then you got to walk away from him. But Brandon Tanev would be one that I would take a second look at.
I mean, if you don't care about veteran presence, which I don't think Devin cares much about from what we've heard here tonight, just giving you a hard time. But if you were to switch out Jeff Carter, I would put Jason Zucker on the protected list. But I like that list, and I like the reasons for keeping Carter on.
I would keep Brandon Tanev, and I would take the chance that Seattle doesn't want Jeff Carter. I think what is Brian Burke's word? Truculence. Brandon Tanev has truculence.
That does.
I think he's more of a fit there. But the defense, I agree with you there 100%. Marcus Peterson is a guy I would be protecting as well. Other than that's my only quibble there is Brandon Tanev. Finally, one more team, and it is the Washington Capitals. And this will be interesting. Well, it's always interesting. So I went Samsonov in goal, defenseman John Carlson, Dmitry Orlov, Justin Schultz. I think those are pretty easy. Forward was a bit difficult. I didn't want to protect Tom Wilson. I don't like Tom Wilson, but I have to, on this roster, I have to protect him. Backstrom, I protected Anthony Mantha, a guy I'm still pretty high on. Connor Sheary is a guy I protected, Darren Sprong and Evgeny Kuznetsov, as well as I protected TJ Oshie. I just think that he's got some versatility. You can move him up and down the lineup. If the Kraken want this guy, I think they need to earn it. And you're going to note a name that I did not protect because he's a UFA, and I don't think Seattle's going to go after him anyway. I did not protect Alexander Ovechkin. I think if he goes anywhere, it will be the Eastern Conference, and it will be in the same division. But I just don't see the Kraken taking that chance on Alexander Ovechkin. I just don't think that that's a fit there. So for me, there's a couple of forwards I don't want to protect Kuznetsov, but I think you kind of have to. And I don't like Tom Wilson, but for asset management, I do have to keep him.
The only outside of the goaltender protection list, you can protect anybody who you want. I don't think they're going to go away from Vanecek. I think that he's 25 years old. You have RFA protection, so Seattle would have that player management within what happens with him, and he's shown within this past year with Samsonov really being an idiot and going against the COVID protocols, that Vanecek is able to push the team forward. And I think he does have a little bit more to give within within his realm of what he's shown in the NHL. So to me, it doesn't really matter who you expose on defense or forward. Vanacek is their number one goalie going forward for Seattle. And TG Oshie, sure, you're from there, and you could be the face of the franchise, just like Fleury was for Vegas. But Vanacek, I think it'd be completely and utterly stupid of them to not go with him. Even if they do, Washington does decide to go against what we think what's going to happen, and they protect Vanacek over Samsonov because of what has happened this year with the COVID and the fact that he had to isolate for twice within this year, and protecting Samsonov or Vanacek over Samsonov. One of those two goalies is going to be the number one goaltender within that new franchise. It makes zero sense to me going otherwise.
For me, I mean, I'd love to see Lars Eller or Carl Hagelin on the protected list, but I like, who do you take off for a forward instead? I mean, Connor Sherry, I guess by default you'd have to put him on the exposed list, but Wilson, Mantha, Oshie, Kuznetsov, Backstrom, Ovechkin are musts. So,
I can't say anything. What you got there, Kevin, is probably what I would have had. There's good players that they're going to be looking at. I don't think it's as slam dunk as Devin thinks with Vanacek, but I do think it's a very, very strong possibility that that's where they go.
Well, then who else would they take? Like, what are the goalies that are going to be exposed that's going to be out there that's going to make them think otherwise within not taking Vanacek?
Well, I think there's other. I just think there's Vanacek's only done 1 year. Like, the goaltenders are in we don't know enough about goaltending and how it is. So it really depends on how much they trust whoever's handling the scouting of the goaltending. But with Washington, like, you've got, I would say, you look at depending on how they go, like Lars Eller would be a nice ad. Would be you got Carl Hagelin would be a nice ad. Garnet Hathaway, Brandon Dillon would be a nice ad. I still think it's very, very strong that they go with Vanacek. I just don't think it is as slam a dunk as you.
Damn it, he's frozen again.
I'm leaning there.
Yeah.
Well, just because of where Ron Francis is kind of going, Sergeant Pickles, you have Allen, Talbot, Hill, Khudobin. Yes, those are good potential goaltenders, but I think they're taking the long look at this and not seeing, because Allen, Talbot, Hill, well, not so much Hill, but Khudobin are all older goalies that they've shown that they've been able to contribute within this league. But Vanacek, man, he's 25 years old. He still has 5 years before he's 30 to show that he is able to carry the Kraken to where they want to be. And to me, that means a lot more within what I've heard where they want to be projected. It's not going to be the Vegas model of like, we need to be competitive right now, but within the next 3 to 5 years. And Vanacek, to me, with his age, with what he's shown within the past year and a half, that makes the most sense to me.
But there's some interesting names on that Washington list I did leave out.
For sure.
So
For sure.
It's a tough list. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we have done it. We have done all 30 teams.
And under 3 hours. We're closing in on 3 hours. We are contractually obliged to keep this to 3 hours.
All right.
Only because I said we got to try to keep it under 2, and we were not even close.
I didn't expect us to be under 2, but we did pretty well in terms of efficiency. So the next step in terms of the expansion draft part of this is we are going to now take these lists, and we're going to pick the Seattle Kraken team. We're going to figure out how the hell to do that. So that'll be, I think, yeah, we'll discuss that off air, how that will work, but that'll be the next step. We have, of course, the actual list will be out on the 17th. So we will talk about that. 18th. Yeah.
Sorry. So 17th is when it's going to be submitted to the NHL. 18th is when the public will know.
Yeah. Yeah. So the list out 17th. So we will be commenting on the 18th on our house cast. We'll be going to Sean's house to be doing the podcast in Calgary, Alberta. Tyler and I are going to wear masks or we have to. We'll be COVID friendly for sure. But we're going over to Calgary and to celebrate Tyler's birthday as he turns 132.
Thanks.
With that hair, it's unbelievable.
It's held up pretty well here through 3 hours. I had to grease it up before we started here. So.
Yeah. We also, just to run through what we're also doing, we're going to do a first round mock draft. So we got that. We got unrestricted free agency is coming. We've got who the Kraken actually take. Do they listen to the brilliant 4 of us, 5 of us, including Chris, or do they go a different way? We'll see about that. What trades are happening? We didn't even bring that into the factor here in terms of our list, but what trades are happening? But we did discuss that as well. So we got a bunch going on. So like us, subscribe us, follow us. How do you follow us individually?
I am Beardy Canuck 03 on Twitter.
I'm on Twitter at Tnoble, Tnoble.
Follow me on Twitter. It'll be the best thing that you do. Gordhauser9.
Schneids, because Chris is Schneids. Rocking it out, SCHNEIDZ. I am KEVOLE, podcast_hockey, Facebook.com, The Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, The Hockey Podcast. Subscribe to the audio. Thanks, everyone. We will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.